man. Cheers. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, guys. TWC podcast. This time, Nake Florin. Nake is a Mondioring decoy, has a very interesting career, lives in England, but is originally from Romania. And that's how we met. I don't know, we were looking at Facebook yesterday. What was it, like 2015, 14? Yeah. I was giving some seminar.
March 2015.
Yeah, that's kind of how we met. It was pretty crazy.
Well, I met you before that because I was
yeah?
like studying all your videos.
Okay, but you didn't meet me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, man, I don't even know. We had 5 days of training. And it's really cool what we can do in 5 days when we know what we are doing and we pick up from where we are. Like, it was very cool, and now it's time to chill and talk dogs a little bit. Tell me your story, because I don't even know. You know, I mean, I know bits of it, but I don't know much. Where did it go
So
start?
for me, it all started somewhere around 2007. No, I'm kind of lying. So I've been around dogs.
You can lie.
I've been around dogs all my life, right? Like since I'm able to remember, I've been around dogs.
Yeah.
And my first memory about dogs is my grandfather. When I used to go and visit, I actually spent a lot of time during my childhood and my grandparents. And we're talking about ex-communist country, so that mentality at that time. So
Because you're from Romania.
I'm from Romania, yeah.
And Romania borders with Bulgaria, like actually all the way.
Yeah, and my grandfather had this German Shepherd. Her name was Tina.
Tina,
yeah. And mentality at that time was to have a dog in the garden, keep it somewhere in the back of the garden, in a kennel or tied or whatever it was, and then just let it out.
You go twice a day to feed it.
Yeah,
and
then just let it out at night so no one comes in and steals your vegetables or whatever it was, right? And then Tina had a house kennel type of thing, and then she was tied to a chain. And my first training experience as a very young kid was my grandfather telling her, Tina, on the house, and she used to just jump on the house. So that was like my first thing that like actually stuck to my head, because every time my grandfather passed away when I was young, and then every time we were kind of like talking about my grandfather, that story always came up. Do you remember how he used to say, Tina, get on? So that was like my first.
I'm sure as a kid, pretty impressive. You think, well, like, wow, that's a very smart dog, our dog.
I have a picture when I was like 2 or 3, and Tina was behind me, and I had a cat in my hand. So there was like this attraction to animal from like since I was very, very young. And then I started to, like, my parents started to have dogs. Dobermans were like the first dogs in my life that were like serious dogs, if I can put it that way.
In Eastern Europe, even now there is still here and there some good Dobermans, no?
Yeah, I recently had one that I worked with in England, but he was from Serbia, so Eastern Europe, right? So I had a Doberman, and then she had some puppies, and I kept one of the puppies, and her name was Chelsea, and I remember that I used to take her out, and then all the kids were looking at me coming out with the dog, and then you just like climbing trees, up in the trees, because
that's a Doberman.
He's a Nake with. I mean, I had like some instances where she grabbed a couple of trousers and like pants and stuff like that. So
nice.
And then I went like a couple of years without. I went into sport, into soccer, into football, and I had a Cocker Spaniel, which was like a family dog,
of course.
Right? And I'll tell you a bit more about this Cocker Spaniel, because it did one of the things that I was like most surprised of I've ever experienced with a dog. This is not related to training. This was just purely related to her as a dog at that with that specific situation she was in. I'll tell you about it in a second. So the spaniel was just like a family. I was take her out for walks, and then that was
cool.
that, right? And then in 2007, I was looking for a Doberman, and I couldn't find one at that time. I wanted like tomorrow if I was able to, right? And obviously when you search for a dog, it's not like the puppy just like flourishes out of nowhere. You need to do it. And I was really impatient to have a dog. So I made a compromise, and instead of a Doberman, I got a Rottweiler, which that dog really changed my life. She's the reason why I'm here today. And because it all started with her, like being serious about dog training and getting myself invested and involved in everything that dog training meant from that point forward for me. So she was interesting because she had people will call it this day a behavior issue. I think she was just her. She was a natural resource guarder from the age of 2 months. 2.5 months. I brought her home, and she explored the house, and everything was nice. And then I gave her something to eat, and I went to stroke her like that. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. And then obviously I had like no deep knowledge of like how do I deal with this. I mean, I had the traditional knowledge. A dog is supposed to listen to you when you say this and all of that, right? So because that was like what I was brought up with.
Right.
And then as she got older, she got bigger, and I couldn't like stroke her anymore like that because, you know, it starts to be like a bit more serious. And when she was around 6 months old, I said, okay, I actually need some help here. So I've done my research about some.
So you didn't think this is a Doberman thing anymore?
No. Actually,
like we have some problem here.
We have some problem here. Like my brother, which at that time my brother is younger than me, and like I was a teenager. He was way younger, and I was like, yeah, we kind of have a problem. She's 6 months now, and we can kind of deal with it, but then in a year's time, we'll both just wait in the other room until the dog finishes something to eat, and then we'll come out, right? So I didn't want to get to like extreme points like that. So I've done my research, and I got involved with. I actually called the trainer to come and visit me and the dog, and that experience was just mind-blowing for me.
Interesting, right?
Extremely mind-blowing. So my entire experience, that dog's entire life with me was every time she ate and someone was around, she used to growl. And you were getting closer, and she would raise her intensity. And then this trainer came around, and then he asked me what the problem was and how exactly the dog is behaving, and I told him all of that. And then he kind of said, oh, can you like demonstrate it a bit for me? So I put some food down in a food bowl, and then I said, do you want me to touch her? And he said, well, try at least. Obviously I didn't even get the chance to like touch her because she started displaying that behavior. So he said, okay, that's fine, let her finish her food. She finished her food, and then he asked me, can you get a bit more food and put it in the bowl? So I've done that, and he said, give me the bowl. So I gave him the bowl, and then the dog she was very foodie. Like food was like her life at that moment, right? So she nicely sat in front of him, and he kept covering the food with his hand, opening it up, clicking and giving food. So he did that for about 5-10 minutes, moving the bowl in different positions until he put the football down. She started eating, and he stroked her, and she just ate. And I was like, do you have something in your pocket? Did you do something? And then my mind was just like, how is this possible?
What is going on?
And then he gave me instructions from that point. So like, you need to do what I did, and then you can like amplify a bit the situation if you want. You can add some movement. So I've done all that for a month, and I was like, whoa, this is like mind blowing. Like I've actually like done this by myself. He wasn't there anymore.
Right.
This was like springtime, And then summertime came, and myself and my family went on holiday. And as we were on holiday, I remember we were talking, me and my dad were talking about this guy. And then I thought to myself, oh, let me just like contact him, see what he does, what he's doing. And he said, oh, I've got a commercial on this date, which was like a few days after I was returning from holiday. And I was like,
like doing dogs for commercials.
A commercial for a chocolate bar.
Okay.
Using dogs.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, do you want to come and like have a look around and like help a bit if you want? I said, yeah, absolutely. I had a pleasure like being around him, especially after that experience with the Rottweilers. So I returned from holiday. I went to this commercial. I was like, what am I supposed to do now? Oh, can you like hold this, and then can you go over there? Can you like hold the dog for a second? He actually got me involved, which was like, it was like, oh, I guess I'm doing this now, right? And then that commercial turned into another one, and then the second commercial turned into, oh, can I come and like see how you train the dogs at some point if you have any time to like offer to me? And he said, yeah, absolutely, just come along. This guy was a type of a free spirit guy. So this is what he did all day. He trained dogs, raining, sunny, hot, winter, snow, whatever. He trained dogs one way or another. And from that point forward, I just started like following him around. And for a good few months, I was just there, just observing, like doing when it came to his clients and his dogs that he was working with, and this was like obedience or some behavior problems at times. Here and there, like the odd protection dog that he would do. And I was just like there observing. And then after about...
That was not too common in Romania at the time, or
wasn't,
were they?
It wasn't in terms of like, you couldn't like just phone an organization and say, I want to come and shadow someone. You just had to have an experience with someone. Right. And then be a person who shows some form of interest.
Somebody that knows somebody that...
Yeah. And then either you are a client to that person, and then you show like good skills when you're doing things, and then they spot you and they go like, hey, would you like to like give me a hand with this dog? That's kind of like a lot of my friends back home in Romania became like dog trainers. They initially were clients, or they have a legacy in dog training. Their parents work with dogs or something like that. So those 3 months of just like doing nothing turned into, okay, so you remember that dog we've been seeing for the last 2 months? So you've seen what I've done with him? And I said, yeah. Well, today I'm gonna do part of the lesson, and then you're gonna do the other. And I was like so excited, right? And I was like, okay, like I was stressed but excited at the same time, right? So obviously I've made like mistakes over there, but the overall feedback was like that was good. And then one dog turned into 2, into 3, into 4, into 6, into like, until he was reaching the point where I was like visiting him, and he used to go like, here's the car keys. Can you go see those 4 dogs that we've been working on? And then I'll see you back, and then we go and see the group class or whatever we were doing at that time. So that's how kind of like my journey in dog training started, which was, for me, it was a lot of, initially wasn't practical, but it was practical because I was there to observe it.
It was, you weren't doing, but you're watching it.
I was watching it. So there wasn't my upbringing in dog training and exposure was not reading or listening to any. It was just purely observing, and then trying to simulate what I've observed in a day when I was getting back home and trying to do. My poor dog, my Rottweiler, was like, here we go again, another lesson again. Right, so because I was like, well, he showed me something today, I must try it with my dog.
Did you end up making money from working with him?
I did, which was like, unfortunately, that was so when you talk about making money as an apprentice, if you want to put it that way, my first like small amount of money from a dog was years after. And it was somehow like a 50-50, like, okay, I've got this client, it's a Rottweiler, you have a Rottweiler, so you should be relaxed around the Rottweiler. I said, yeah, absolutely no problem, I would love to. And it was a 50-50 share but it was like I've done the dog from the beginning.
Okay.
And unfortunately, because of that, we kind of like disagreed.
Started to
Yeah,
of course that
so
happens. I mean, that's just how it goes. Sometimes.
It's just how it goes, and it wasn't a ridiculous amount of money, right? It was like if I can put it into like convert it to today's money, it was like $100, right? For like a month of training. So it wasn't a ridiculous amount of money, but for me, like the principle, like in my upbringing in sport, like being fair and having sportsmanship, it just didn't feel. It wasn't $100. Okay, for me at that age, it was like probably it meant a lot of money, but later on in life, I've discovered why I was like so adamant of like not letting go of a few things, because he's been teaching me for so many years. But then I realized, okay, actually, from my point of view, I did have a point. It's about like respect, and it's about like like a bit of sportsmanship in that situation. And then we kind of like went different ways, as in like I don't want to like be in this situation, because if this happened now, it's probably gonna happen again. And then I didn't want to feel like awkward about it, so I said I'm just gonna like try and like do my own. If I can. I was a nobody. I was just like his assistant for a couple of years, but then I said I'm just gonna try my luck. And then when I went by myself for a couple of months, there was like nothing. I didn't know how to advertise myself, because that was not my thing. I was used to like getting there and it was like, he's a client, he's a new one.
It's a whole different way.
Yeah, but in this process of, and in this period of 2 years, I've met people that he was working with. And one of them, we actually talked about him today when I said one of my mentors called me this morning to ask you about the study. I mentioned this morning, right? It was a total different personality between my previous mentor and him. He's also a vet. His wife is a vet. He's a dog trainer. So there was a lot of like, dogs were everything.
Right.
And then I started like being around him. So I went from one mentor to another, but the feeling and the realities for me were totally different. This was a completely fair and straight guy. I said, if you get 30 and I get 40, or the other way around, that was that. His word was his word. So I felt a bit like differently about that.
And that was just pet dog training.
Pet dog training, and then the odd behavior problem, and we had like certain events that we used to attend, and my first client came. My first client, as in my mentor called me and said, I've got this golden retriever who just wants to learn how to walk on the lead and come back and do a sit, do a down, and wait if the owner is telling them to wait. And I said, great. And then I went and I've done that. And that was like, I remember that experience even to this day, because I can remember myself sweating about not fucking this up, because it was my first like solo thing.
I don't even know if I remember my very first one. I have to think about this one day.
Yeah, with the previous one, it was like, okay, he's there, he's gonna come in 2 weeks and give me feedback. Okay, you need to work a bit more on this. But this was like me, like purely me. And despite the stress, like the passion that I had, and the consistency in like doing that job, that whatever you want to call it, was like I was like successful. The people were very happy.
Yeah.
And I was very happy. In none of those moments, I actually thought about getting paid. I don't know why, but it wasn't. See, when you get, for me at least, it was like
I get it.
Yeah, I'm not ever actually thinking, okay, we've done another session, I can tick another box. So okay, one more done out of the block, and then I'm getting closer to getting paid. It wasn't like that.
Right.
It was just
I get it.
Like I really need to like make this work, because
the most important thing
I knew
is
that
to
if
work.
this works, there's another one coming, and if there's another one coming, there's another 3 coming, and that's kind of like how I started.
So you kind of knew, you took the dog trainer path pretty quickly.
Yeah, the classic one, if I
Yeah.
can put it that way. Yeah, for me, it was very healthy at that time. I think it's
And then what? Then how did you end up in England?
in England. So when I moved to England, I already had like my company. I already had like I was a dog trainer at a boarding facility. I wasn't their dog. I wasn't spending time there, but they would receive clients that would like their dogs trained. So I would just go over there, and it was a split situation between we're taking the boarding and then you're taking the fees for training.
That's collaboration. That's
Yeah,
good one.
exactly. So I was doing that. I had my like my own business, like I said, which involved a lot of filming. I've done a lot of like stuff myself. I can even like YouTube them. Then I can show them to you. Commercials and small movies and stuff like that. And then moving to England was out of nowhere, if I can put it that way. It was just circumstances. Something happened, and then I ended up down there. Me and my girlfriend at the time, which is today my wife, we were planning on moving to Belgium because I was already a Mondio decoy, and I've already had like an experience in Belgium. And Belgium and decoying is like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's the homeland.
Yeah, the homeland, right? So for me, it was like definitely like that's the place that I want to be.
Okay, then let's back up then. So you already, before you went to England, you already got into Mondio pretty heavy to the point that you
In
actually
Romania.
got certified as a decoy.
Yes. So a few years before I moved to England, I moved to England in 2015, and in 2013, I started my Mondioring journey. From a legit point of view, but I started training in 2012.
Okay.
My first bite, I remember today, I was extremely shit at it. It was on a leg sleeve, and the guy who owned the dog, he's one of my friends today. He's a Mondio decoy as well, and a decoy handler. And he said, "Oh, let's just let you have a bite." And I put the sleeve on my leg, and then he sensed the dog, and then the dog just did whatever the dog wanted with me, like push me, drag me.
Like Chris today in the car.
Yeah, which was the right thing to do, right?
Get in the car, let's go.
And the dog just did whatever they wanted with me. And now I just stood up and I'm like, that felt good for some reason. I don't know why, but that just like felt really, really good. And then similar to my experience with the first mentor, they were a training group, and I just like started to like, can I watch? Can I like see what you guys are doing? And then that certain.
So they were strictly just a ring sport group. Or
It was a Mondio.
Okay.
It was early days
Nice.
back in Romania, and it was just 2 dogs, maybe 3 if I remember correctly. But I was just like hanging around, and then it only took a session for me to hang around. And as on the next one, I was like,
Addicted. Yep.
can I jump in the suit and see how it is? So I've done that in 2012, and then in 2013, one of the people that actually like physically put me in the suit and said, we're gonna do stuff today that you haven't done before. Which I'm still thankful to him to this day, because whenever I felt like down about it or I haven't done anything good, he used to like call me and man me up or give me a beating, or he used to tell me like, he used to approach me in all sorts of angles just to like make sure I stay on that path, right? And I remember one day he said to me, we're working with Malinois, you need to be like a Malinois, right? And I was like, that push my bravery up a bit. And I had all sorts of like diverse training with him. I remember he put me in a suit, and he used to come very close to me, put his hands on my shoulders, and said, you want to learn how to take a dog, how to absorb a dog? And I said, yeah, I'm going to kick your shins. Don't let me kick them. And the first couple of times he really kicked me, right? And it hurt. But then I started to like see and anticipate, and then started to move. And then I was like, okay, so when the dog comes and it hits me, I can move my leg this way, right? So it may sound strange now, but at that time, those were the ways of like teaching, right? There was a lot of shouting. There was a lot, but it was beneficial, right? I wouldn't be who I am today if I wouldn't have gone through all of that. So in 2013, I got my first license in Romania, which was called assistant decoy. Required you to be on the field with a fully licensed decoy. So you're kind of conditioned to be allowed to be a decoy in a competition by other factors. And after that, I've got my full license in Romania. And at that time, FCI allowed people to get certified in other countries. So after I've done my license in Romania, this was May 2014. 2014. In October 2014, I went to Belgium, so I got another license there. I spent 10 days in Belgium at a training club, and I was lucky in that situation because the training club that I trained at had the world champion of Mondioring in category 3. So I've trained with like some really, really good dogs, and the mentor there was great. That's the club where Tommy is from. You know, we talked about Tommy in veteran. Me and Tommy actually got licensed on the same day, and it was just like a very cool experience. And my attraction to Belgium just was like.
But you just went to get the certification.
I didn't need to. I just wanted to.
Okay.
I didn't. I had my one in Romania, but people in Romania traveled abroad and they train in that place, and they said, "Oh, we have this preparation stage. If you want to send someone from Romania, then no problem." So I went there, and during my days of training there, I used to like pop at other clubs just to see what they're doing. It wasn't necessarily Mondio. It was like Belgian Ring or NVBK. And it was just like exposure of working those left, right, and center. I was like, this is like heaven. Like back in Romania, it was just me and like 4 other people like at that time doing it. And I got my license in Belgium as well. And the process was you do a week or so of training, then you get certified, and then if you want, you can compete as a decoy in a competition. Like one after another. The examination for decoys was on Saturday, and then the competition was on Sunday. So
that's kind of crazy.
That was intense because it was a week of training, full-on training.
Right.
Then it was examination. So the stress of that, because it's practical and physical and theory. So when you take an exam and you think like, oh, I really need to pass this.
Yeah.
So I've done all that, and the result was very good. And they asked me, "Oh, would you like to compete tomorrow?" And I said, "Absolutely. What do you mean?"
That's crazy.
So yeah, I've done that. So I got certified in Romania.
Compete meaning to be the decoy.
To be the decoy to decoy a competition.
That's crazy.
And then I returned to Romania, and I continued to train with my group. And then me and my wife, we made the decision, oh, let's move to Belgium. I already had family in Belgium, and we visited them on holiday, which was an influence because it was like, I know it was holiday, but the experience was nice, right? And I was like, okay, I'm doing my decoying. My wife's in the medical field. She's a physiotherapist, so I said that would be like, that's not a. You'll find something in that area as well of working.
Of course.
And we started learning French, right? So after days of work, we used to go to my house, and then we had our private teacher to come and teach us French. And then it was summertime, and then one night, one of my friends who's a vet she was creating this organization. I can't remember the name of it, but I remember she needed me to give her my CV so she can have a trainer in the table of like organization of how she was a director and then secretary and then the vet and then there was a trainer. So she needed me, right? So I said, yeah, no problem. So I've done that and I've sent it to her, and then she said, oh, can you do one in English? So I've done one in English. I've done my CV in English and sent it to her. And on the same night, my wife said, I know we're planning on moving to Belgium, but why don't you just use the CV you've sent and then just like see if there's something like where we speak English. So I went, I Googled like dog training jobs in London, and I saw a company. I researched it a bit. It was a residential training company, which was what I was doing in collaboration with the people back home in Romania.
Yeah.
So it wasn't anything unusual for me. It wasn't like
Right.
I was like diving into something that I never experienced. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna pop my CV there. I don't know. And I've put it there like with no hopes that anything's gonna happen. 2 days later, oh, we're really interested in like your CV like looks really good. Can you send us some videos of you training a dog or some dogs? I said, yeah, no problem. The next day I've sent them some videos, and then the same day they replied. They said, oh, that looks really good. Can we book you a flight so you can come and see our facilities, see what happens? And I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, no problem. It was a new experience. And I was about to move anyway, but I said, let me just try here.
What part? Where was it at?
This was in just a bit outside London. I actually live like 10 miles away from that place now.
Okay.
So they booked the flight. I went there. I had a form of an interview. It was more of a chat about dogs. No, sorry. I had a online interview prior to me leaving. Right? Those were like the technical questions and stuff like that. So I've passed that interview. I went over. I had a practical session with a couple of dogs, which was fun.
Right.
Yeah, it was a small dog and a big dog. And I was like, yeah, no problem. And then we had a chat, and they were, at the end, like details about how much money did you make in Romania. This is what we can offer. This is the schedule, like all the like formalities that you would have in that kind of conversation. And then at the end, it was like, well, welcome to the team. And I was like, well, hello. Yeah, okay. So they said, when can we have you? And I said, okay, man. I said,
hold on.
Hang on. I'm just gonna leave like my family, my friends, my business, my everything. So you can't have me next week. But this was at the beginning of end of June, and I said I can come here in a month,
which is very reasonable.
It's reasonable, right? I said I'm literally flipping my life upside down, right? So I went home and I talked with my wife, and it was something that we were gonna do anyway, but I just didn't expect it to happen like that quick, right?
Yeah. That's the thing. Careful what you wish, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And then she spoke with her family, and then I spoke with my family, and it's like the feedback was the same. You're both young. You need to like try a different experience. And I said, you don't have nothing to lose. Like, if anything doesn't work out, we're back home. Right, so kind of like that was the thought of leaving Romania and moving to England. It was just like by chance and by very circumstantial. If my friend wouldn't have asked me for that CV that night, I probably wouldn't have done it. And then me moving to England changed my Mondioring
But that's
career.
the crazy thing, how it almost looks like always. So yeah, that was pure luck, pure coincidence, pure accident. But then you're thinking back, and it's like, well, maybe it wasn't. Maybe really things were happening as they had to happen, right?
We have a saying in Romania that I think it is very valid. That I don't necessarily think it's just Romania, but they say that you make your own luck. And I think like a few of my life situations actually fit in that. Like, look at this today. I remember I spoke with someone that you had a podcast with, and I had a podcast with them. And in that podcast, I say, "Oh, I'm really like, I'm hoping that I'm gonna have a podcast with Ivan one day." I was not expecting it to have like face-to-face one, right? But then careful what you wish for, right?
Exactly.
So I don't know if it's like law of attraction or if it's like, but I'm here now. So
I mean, I believe that you have to. It starts with, you got to
visualizing that
dream
moment,
it
and
then somehow, depending how bad you want it, how much you put in, things end up happening somehow. It's strange, but I believe in that.
Yeah, no, that's what happened like with this moment right now. And then thinking about this, a lot of like moments in even in my career in Mondioring, I remember that before one of my world championships, there was one particular dog which I really wanted to like compete against, and I was picturing how if I do this exercise of the search and escort, I was picturing I want to get like a standing, and it actually happened. I've got the footage like from million angles, right? But I don't know. It's something that is strange, but if you really want it, it's
So how
gonna
did you
happen.
end up going all the way to being a world-class decoy and being a decoy at the World Championships now? Like, how did that? Because that's not an easy thing. I mean, you have to, you get picked. There is selective. There is a process, and coming from country that clearly there is no tradition for this.
Going into a country where there's clearly no tradition.
Right. And then you have the Belgians and the French and the Swiss and so on, that it's like, there is a whole culture with it. Yes. So how did all that happen? Because there is one thing to get certified to do club trial, level 1, whatever. But then you really
going on the big
made
stage,
it
you
work.
need to do something right? So when I moved to England, all my licenses from Romania and Belgium became invalid.
Oh, because they're not FCI or what?
No, they were FCI, but one of them expired from Romania, and the one from Belgium, because the rules have changed, was not valid anymore. So here I am in England, back to square one, right? It's like nothing. And England at that time had only a couple of dogs who were training Mondioring. They weren't like even competing. Or if they had a competition, was a one-off or something like that, right? So I had to start like show myself in that area as well. And this happened like after a year and a half of being in England, because when you change countries, you need to adapt to everything that's in that country, from a cultural point of view, from a legal point of view. You have to like be patient and take your time and settle down. And I wasn't living in a house by myself with my wife. We started like, the journey was a bit bumpy at the beginning, but then we ended up settling, and then okay, we're settled, we've got our own place, we've got stable jobs. Now we need to like look at stuff that create us a bit of pleasure, so we can like be happy as humans, as individuals, right? So I went back straight to like my Mondioring, and I remember I've done a introduction day to Mondioring. The people that came there had absolutely no idea what Mondioring was. It was a practical element to it, of all sorts of dogs, which was good to have, because I was able to like introduce to a novel audience how Mondioring works. Obviously, it wasn't anything from a competition, but
but it's still super attractive.
Exactly.
I mean,
and one of the people in the audience was the actual president of the Mondioring Association there. So he saw that I was interested. He did a bit of research about me. Okay, he's not lying. He's been a licensed decoy in Romania. He's been in Belgium, and he's 60 something, 70 now. So he's been in Mondioring for about 40 years. So he knows people.
Yeah.
So he called people and said, "Do you know this guy?" "Oh yeah, he's been. Yeah, we know him." So he's like, "Yeah, okay." I mean, he took it as, I must do something. So in 2019, he organized licensing for decoys in the UK.
When was COVID? I kind of got lost with
I've
this
done my
context.
license just before COVID properly started. I've done it in December, 22nd of December 2019.
But COVID started sometime 19, right? Or?
It started December 19, but it was related to the other side of the planet in Asia, and then in January everything changed. So it wasn't much time in between my licensing and then COVID really hitting us all over the place. So I was lucky I was able to do that just before. And the thing at that time with England was, because there was no licensed decoys, because there was no competitions organized in England, it had to be a special solicitation from the UK Mondioring Association to the FCI to have the licensing in France. So,
but that makes sense actually, right? I mean,
okay. And then the only criteria that wasn't able to be it really needed to be fulfilled was the judge that was going to certify the decoys had to be of UK nationality, of British nationality.
That's interesting.
Luckily, there is someone like that, and she was able to be there. And the whole licensing was able to be organized. Now, when you do organize
Man, that's kind of crazy doing it in France, but we need an English representative and like a little
so there's a lot of
right.
things to happen. Plus, you need dogs to
Right.
to compete.
It's not a written test.
It is one of the things,
but
it's not just that.
Right.
It's a physical, and it's a written, it's a practical.
Right.
My luck was that I've been in Belgium, and I knew people in Belgium, and the place that I had my license in France is about an hour and a half from the place I trained in Belgium. The summer of the year I got licensed, I was on holiday in Belgium, and I went and I visited and I trained, knowingly that I was gonna get at some point it's gonna be that licensing is gonna be organized. I went there with the purpose of like, hey guys, it's been a few years since I've been here, but I still got the moves, I still got the skills. Look at me now. I'm still the same.
Yeah.
The same decoy you've met me like years ago, right? And then all it took was for me to like give a phone call to
and I'm
that
sure
club.
they
and
like to
they said,
help
yeah,
for
absolutely,
sure,
no
right?
problem. Obviously I asked how much do I need to pay you for your
Nice.
your gas. They said absolutely nothing. But obviously I gave them like gifts, like toys
Cool.
for the dogs and stuff like that. So I got my license, and now I need to make it a full license.
And that was what, like level 1,
the
2?
test. Oh, the test. The test.
What did you say?
The test to get a license is very individual for every country, meaning that they can organize it by a certain structure, but they can play around with a few details when it comes to either the physical exam or the practical one. The theory is pretty much the same.
Right.
You can only change how you do the theory. So the difference between getting a license and doing it at a super selection is that at the license you get 30, 32, 34 written questions with A, B, and C answers. At the super selection you get 4 questions verbally asked by the judge. So it's the questions are from the same thing, from the Mondioring rules,
Right.
but the structure of them is different. This doesn't stop any other country to do verbal questions at their licensing. So there are various options in which they can do it. So you have a theory exam. Instead of saying it written, you got a theory exam, and then you got physical, and then you got practical. For the UK, the theory is 32 questions. And if you don't pass that, so that's the first thing you do. If you do not pass that,
Sure.
you cannot go into,
Right. Yeah.
because if you don't know the rules
Yeah.
written, how can we allow you to be on the field to do something? I don't know what, you're gonna
Right.
injure yourself, it makes total sense. And then you go to the physical. Now, the interesting part with the physical is that you do the physical test, which consists from a 1 kilometer run and then a slalom in the suit of 160 meters up and down in a zigzag direction. And as soon as you finish these 2 elements, you go straight into category 1. So physically, there's intensity to it. So for a license, you work all categories in Mondioring, because you have to be able to show the difference in applying pressure, the difference in how you allow the dog to, how you confront the dog. How you confront the dog in category 1 is way more different than category 2, similar than how you confront the dog in category 3. Similar with the escort, similar with the defense of the handler. It's a category 1, but still you have to act certain things in the defense of the handler. Judges look at your imagination. They look at how you speak. Are you using bad words? Are you not using bad words, right?
Really?
Yeah, because you get novel audience that are like interested in the sport. They can't really hear the decoy like swearing and saying all.
Well, I would fail.
So it's intense, but obviously my interest was very high, and I was, despite knowing the rules, I was like reading them every day, and then I was like finishing a day of work and then changing my clothes, going at the park and do my running, finishing late at night at 9 o'clock in the 9 p.m. I was running in the park. and then I had no dogs to train with.
Right, which is a problem.
Which is a
always.
problem,
Yeah, that's
right?
a problem.
So certain areas in my movements were lacking the actual physical experience.
Right. I remember myself being at that time to where you kind of you have one move that you feel very good, and you have maybe two more, but you just don't have enough dog to practice anything else. So you're kind of like yeah, this is me. I have three moves.
Pretty much, yeah. So what I ended up doing was, I remember people would look at me like, what is that guy doing? I would simulate a stick attack or an accessory attack in the park with no dog.
Oh, yeah.
I would have a bamboo stick, and I would pretend that the judge is giving me the cue, the signal to start the exercise, and I would attract and charge at the dog, and I would run, and I position myself at a contact point, and then pretend that the dog is coming, and then pretend to put pressure on it. Similar with like object guard, that at least helped my brain to put my body in that situation where, okay, we need to practice this somehow, dog or no dog. At least think of there's an object, think of the dog coming out and try to push it, or right?
Yeah.
So doing that was not easy. Getting a license for the United Kingdom was not easy, because logistically there were a lot of things that were missing.
I had to get a license at one point because it was there was no, I mean, this was like early 90s, and there was nothing, there was nothing. So to have a Mondio or French ring, which was also a thing still in the States, having decoys was not easy. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, it's not that I didn't like to be a decoy, like for competition, but I like the training. So, but then I'm like, okay, well, we cannot just keep flying people from all over the place. So at least I got at the time a certification to do club trials. And then I was like, okay, I'll do the same with French ring. And went to Colorado to pass the selections and certify. And I thought I was gonna die. I was like so fucked up because, I lived in San Francisco at the time, and I can't remember where in Colorado, but it was somewhere up in the mountain. It was like high elevation. So here I'm pretty much always been in a very good shape with very good endurance, even today. And
that was a different game, was it?
Who was it? It was Michel Valadon. It's a very, very cool guy. He's very, I don't think he does anything anymore, but he was a very, very on top of the game back in the 90s. And so he sets us up to warm up.
Right.
Just to warm up, to make a circle around 2 laps around the soccer field. And I am gonna pass out, and I don't get it. What's going on? I'm like this something is very wrong with me. And then I look around, and all the guys are whatever, and I'm like I have no idea what's happening, but there is no way I can pass this thing, and I have no idea why. It got really, I thought I'm seriously going to have some heart failures. Like something is very wrong, and I don't know why. Because, being in shape, and it's all of a sudden you're like, why would I?
What's wrong?
Then some thoughts are coming into my head. I'm like, maybe I should have trained harder. This is serious, and I didn't take it seriously, and whatever, start to blame myself. Until 2 guys are like, dude, just stop and calm down. It's the high elevation, and it's the lack of oxygen, and you're gonna be okay. But it was so bad. I remember this it was a nightmare because this was one time where I really am like, oh, this is so easy. Like there's nothing to,
I'll do it, no problem.
I can run, I can jump, yes, I can have a vest with some kilos on it. I've done it, it's not like, but
Something wasn't adding up at that moment, right?
Yeah, San Francisco's like the sea level, and just there is nothing. Like we got on a plane and late in the evening, and the next morning I'm running with a bike to warm up, right? And I'm like, help me somebody, because I have to go home. It was horrible. Anyway, but this is it's very important. I think the physical part is very, very important.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you can have theory, you can have the mechanical skills, but when the endurance is not there and the fatigue hits, your skills go down.
Absolutely.
And then it becomes dangerous, because you just cannot, you're not safe, and you're very inconsistent, and it just, so like I always appreciate the endurance part, and I think in IGP is not as crazy, and it should be when it comes to the high level competitions, because when you have over 100 dogs, you have to work them within the same. You cannot do some insane cool work day 1 and 2, and then the third day you're just flat, barely dragging yourself. That's not. So I really appreciate the endurance in all the ring, and especially the selections.
Yeah, when you do super selection, they select you for a world championship.
Right.
And if you end up having having to perform a world championship in category 3, it can be 3 or 4 days from 7 o'clock till 6, 7 o'clock. And you have to be, even the rules say that the decoy has to be consistently showing the same thing for for every dog, because then it becomes unfair. I can't show to this dog one thing and then show to the other one the other thing, because what, right? So you need to be, that's the reason why the physical tests are there. Okay, they may be not, they're in a short space of time and they are intense, but that's how ring sport is, right? The biting exercises are, you're elevating yourself and you're putting all this intensity for a short space of time, and then the exercise finishes, and then you got a few moments to recover until you move to the next exercise.
Yeah.
Or in certain circumstances, depending on exercise, you may have a minute or 2 or 3 to recover, but the intensity has to be there, and I think it has to be the same for every competitor. That's how you make the difference in between the dogs and the training, and that's how you pull out the best dogs out of that competition.
So I know we sidetracked. How did you end up entering that world class?
So after getting my license, I need to get my full license. So you get a brevet. It's called a brevet. But then to have a full license, to qualify to attend the super selection, you need to do 3 competitions. This is for the UK. Every country has different rules. You need to do 3 competitions in each category. So that would be 9 categories that I need to do. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So I've done all that.
Like for the year or what?
You got 3 years to do it.
Okay.
Right? And obviously 2020 I've done absolutely nothing because no one did anything.
Yeah, there was nothing.
And then I've managed to do it in 2021. Started with Romania, then went to France, got my competitions done, and then in October, I signed up. Well, I signed up before October for the super selection, because the super selection always happens at the FCI World Championship, which is normally in the first week of October, the first weekend of October. Sometimes it's the second, depending on certain circumstances.
Yeah.
So I went there and I've done the super selection. I was so excited about it.
Did you know what to expect? Were there any surprises?
So I've done like licensing. So I knew the structure of it. It wasn't new for me to take a theory test under the supervision of a judge. It wasn't new for me to be in company of another decoy, knowing that I have to have a better time than them at a.
It is a competition.
It is. I mean, speaking of this, I remember my brain was so in that mode, and I was feeling strong because I was getting physically ready as well. At this point in England, I had my own club, so I had dogs to train. So it was, from a logistical point of view, it was easier.
Yeah.
But I've made that happen, right? Because I started from scratch in England. So I was so excited about that. And I remember I had a post on Instagram with one of the pictures I had in one of the competitions. And I said there, I'm ready. And I remember I said, this super selection is not about me being the best. It's about all the other 19 trying to be better than me. That was my mindset at that moment. And I remember one of the guys, one of the decoys who was going to be there, and said, "Oh man, it's not about who's the best. It's about having fun." I said, "Okay, I can see your point of view, but I do want to be the best. I'm competitive that way." So that mindset actually helped me. I can pull out the videos from all the physical stuff that I've done, and you can see how I'm pushing myself to try and be there in the top. So I've done the super selection. Now the super selection is different than licensing. And the difference is you do not work dogs in category 1 and 2. You work dogs in category 3. Because it's said that if you can work a dog in category 3, it's logical that you can work a dog in category 1 and then in category 2. The test was exactly the same. They twisted it a bit, and they've made physical test first and then theory. That was the only slight change from the normality that existed by that time in super selections. So I've done the physical test. I was first, and I was very happy about it. I've done the theory. I had maximum points. All the 4 questions that I was asked, all of them were correct. And then we do the first practical day. I had one of the hardest dogs that day, and the judges clocked on it. They were like, "Okay, we've seen you've worked with this."
Did they give you dogs, or you choose a dog?
So when you enter, you have to enter with a dog.
So you bring a dog, or you arrange some.
You arrange someone to bring your dog, but you are not competing with that dog. So if I sign up with Kimba,
that's actually cool.
I do not compete with Kimba because he said I know Kimba, so I can
That's
show all
cool.
my skills, but someone else will draw from a number or a name or whatever. They will draw Kimba, and I will draw their dog or someone else's dog.
Because in IGPs you bring your own dog, so you're showing something that you know.
So I didn't know what dog I was going to have.
Okay, I like
I had
that.
absolutely no idea, but the dog was good.
I like it.
So I managed to do some really nice moves with those dogs, and I was within the rules. And obviously, super selection for someone who hasn't done it before, you still get the small hiccups, right? Which is absolutely normal. So the people who have done it before, had more experience, you could see. I've learned afterwards where those details are coming from. So now if you make me do a super selection, I'm so relaxed doing it.
Right.
I'm not going to take that pressure. I'm going to take the motivation and put it somewhere else in the way I will do it. But I ended up getting 3rd place. And nice. 3rd place qualifies you for the next World Championship in categories 1 and 2. So to do my first World Championship in categories 1 and 2, that was and this happened in the space of a year. It was competitions in 2021, super selection, and suddenly I'm qualified for the World Championship.
That's very good. I typically, at this point, I really don't like the fact that there is a World Championship and there is level 1 and 2 in the World Championship. I understand that from the point of back years and years ago where the sport was growing and you needed to bring, but at this point I see it as making it more complicated, taking time consuming, and also sometimes you go to a World Championship and you are the Mondioring world champion. It just doesn't sound right.
I think I maybe I expressed myself wrong, but I don't think it's called Mondioring Category 1 World Championship. I think it's called the Grand Prix. And then the World Championship is the Category 3.
Yeah, but still,
But it's within the same time frame, right? I mean,
Yes,
it's that week. You start
Right.
Wednesday, category 1, Thursday, category 2, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, category 3. It's in the same.
But I guess from decoy practice,
From a decoy
I
point of
think
view,
it's very cool.
I was like, I'm there. And being on third place.
Although sometimes the level 1, they cause more trouble
Yeah.
than any other dog, because he just is like, hops, oh, what did you do? Like, why?
Yeah, it happens. It happens from time to time. But being qualified for the championship in decoying category 1 and 2, it from the third place in the super selection, it puts you as a reserve for category 3.
No, it's a very good, like, it makes very
it's
good
a structure
sense.
that makes sense.
Very
and
much so.
Unfortunately, the decoy in category 3 got injured on the third day.
Which happens all the
Which
time
happens.
anyway.
He's one of my good friends. So I was like, okay, I'm going in, and I'm excited to go in, but I'm so sorry that I feel so shit it happened to you.
Right.
But then he said, no, don't worry, absolutely fine. It's like, it happens.
Again, the show goes
so
on.
I managed to do the world championship in all 3 categories. And more than that, after my super selection, I've qualified for the FMBB in Greece, where we met again.
Mm-hmm.
And there again, I've decoyed in all 3 categories. So I had 2 world championships where I decoyed all 3 categories. And then for me is the world championships, and then is the nationals of each country. In like importance, if you want to make it that way, right? And then you get club trials, you get the country's nationals, and then you get the world championships.
Of course.
And I had a few countries on my list to do the nationals. One was my home country, because I wanted to, because in Romania I wanted to. 2 was Austria, and I've done it last year. And then it was America, which I've done it last year as well.
Yes.
So from my point of view now,
Very
I've ticked
cool.
all the boxes that I wanted in Mondioring.
But I want to stay healthy.
But I want a bit more, right?
How did why Mondio? Why not IGP, or why not like something else?
Like funny enough, before I discovered
happened?
Mondio, it was IPO at that time in Romania. It was more popular. I was hanging around people who were practicing it, and I was just about to go either have a dog or be a IPO decoy. I was like, yeah, this is it. But then Mondio came, which felt a bit more natural for me. Because I've played football.
Yeah.
Involves running, involves fast movements.
Yeah.
And it kind of fitted with my skills. I'm not, who knows me, I'm not the tallest, I'm not the strongest, but
did you know the differences? Like, did you know the sports well, or you really just kind of got drawn into Mondio?
I've observed IPO for a bit, and then I was looking at videos of Schutzhund.
Yeah, it was at that time. Yeah,
it was at that time. So on all CDs, I was looking at it, and I said, well, I guess they are showing me this is the way to go.
Right.
And I've observed a bit of IPO. I had a few bites on the IPO sleeve, but never something structured.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I discovered Mondio, so I got hooked over there. So kind of that's how I got introduced in Mondio. Who knows? Maybe I could have done a good IGP.
No, it's interesting how how it goes. For me, I remember we had this back in Bulgaria. I don't even know if they were really how the Russians would do their competitions, but there was some kind of military style competitions that we used to do in Bulgaria. And then in Belgium, that was when I saw first time Malinois. I knew I want one, but I'd never seen it live. And then it's like, oh, wow, this is crazy. I like it. And then for quite a bit, it was just straight Belgian ring, until I realized that I'm gonna move and not stay in Belgium. And then it was like, well, I have no idea how, but people kept telling me there is no ring in the States, so you have to switch. And I'm like, switch to what? Right. And that's where I really learned about
That was
IGP.
that was your like
But
going
now
into
it's
IGP.
hard to even say which one I like more, because it's a I find it very unfair question, because they both have they bring something interesting to the table.
Yeah,
When you
exactly.
understand how to play it on a high level, they're both very, very interesting sports, you know. So you don't have a dog though, which is like you are not training a dog for Mondio, at least not right now.
My own dog,
Yeah.
no. I do not have a dog.
Right.
Purely because one would be that I do not have the time to
Oh, yeah,
to invest
understandable.
in a dog, and I do not want to be unfair to the dog, to myself, to the sport, to like I don't want to like
Because it would be time consuming. It's a whole other.
yeah.
Yeah.
And once you get a dog, you like your life changes
Right.
again, right?
Right.
So I've got my family, I've got my job, I've got like, and I don't have the time to go into that. Plus,
Yeah.
I'm at that age where I'm getting closer to retiring from the competition level of
Sure.
Mondioring.
Yeah, yeah.
So I still want to do something at a high level
That's good
whilst
thinking.
whilst I still can, and then when I feel like my legs and arms and endurance doesn't work anymore,
Right.
and I say, okay, stop now. I can train. I will
Yeah.
not compete, and
That's
that's
cool.
probably the
I
moment
like
I
it.
will have. I will have a dog.
But so another interesting thing is that, I mean, we share other, even if it's passion or work but right now, what do you do for work?
So right now
What
I
is it?
work in a rescue center back in England,
Yeah.
which is when you mention now we share the same. I know about
Yes.
your past in San Francisco, right?
Yes, yes, yes. No, shelters are definitely shelters, rescue, animal care, definitely something of big interest for me. So tell me more how that happened and what the organization is about and what you guys do, and tell me.
So that happened after being in England for about 3 years. I felt I needed a change, working in the company that got me there the first time, the residential training facility that got me there. I felt
Yeah.
like I needed a change.
Yeah.
And then this opportunity came around, and it was the same process. You apply for a job, you get an interview. So I've done that. Everything was okay, and they offered me a job. So my role over there.
What are they? What is it?
So it's a charity which I think is from the 1860. That's the year it was founded the first
It's one
time.
of those old
So it has a
British
it was a
tradition,
huge
like something.
legacy in it, right? And the name of the charity, it's called Battersea Dogs and Cats Home, and it's called like that because the location is called Battersea.
Battersea.
Right? And it's just by the
Sounds familiar
by
somehow.
the River Thames, right?
Okay.
I don't know if that has any meaning, but so it's been there for a very, very, very long time. And I like researched a bit and talked to people who've been there for a long time. And when they were telling me the stories about how it used to be, it brought me back to how Romanian rescues are. Romanian rescues don't have the facilities that I have now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Romanian rescues, Eastern European probably,
It's a struggle.
It's a struggle. It's just a mesh fenced and a whole bunch of dogs in a very tight space. Right now, in 2024, where I work, each dog has its own space. Each dog has all the benefits from a welfare point of view, from a medical point of view, from a training point of view. So the recipe to like get the best outcome, it's somehow there.
Where do the dogs come from?
The dogs come from people.
Okay.
The
They
dogs
just surrender, like people surrender dogs.
They do it,
There
and there most of the time is a pretty powerful meaning. The law in England about having a pet in your rented place is not great. you cannot have a dog in 60, 70, 80% of the places you're renting. I'm not talking about dog, I'm talking about animal. Like sometimes they refuse birds, sometimes they refuse, like, you can't have an animal because that's how landlords are.
The regulation,
So people get in a situation where they have to move houses.
Right.
And they're pressured to do so, and the only option for them, none of their family wants to take the dog, none of their friends wants to take the dog, so they have, what do I do now? Do I just kick it out the street? If you kick it out the street, it's going to end up there anyway. Right? So that's one of the examples. Changes in circumstances, financially can't deal with having a dog anymore. Some people have dogs and unfortunately they pass away, and it's the same situation. The dog can't go nowhere. The children are abroad, or there's no children, or no one can take the dog, so the dog must go somewhere, right? If the police seizes the dog, they will take it to the council, and the council will take it to a charity.
Okay.
So the structure is like, if anyone brings their dog there must be a reason for it. Sometimes we get stray dogs, but England and stray dogs, they've dealt with that pretty well.
Yes.
You don't see dogs on the street.
Right. It's not Bulgaria or Romania.
Or Thailand, or a lot of places.
Which actually, I mean, there is the good and the bad things about being free and roaming in the streets as a dog. You know, there is also that sense of like, that's my life. Like, I'm free. You know.
When I visit Romania, like, where I go is like, there are like 6-7 dogs around all the time.
That's probably the most I have learned about dog interaction and behavior. It's just the fortunate situation that I grew up watching them and running around with them, you know.
Yeah.
But in Bulgaria I don't know how Romania is. Like, we had, I think it's still the same, like the European Union would put some, or they will make some campaigns and get some money from somewhere. And by the time the money are supposed to come to the actual dogs to get vaccinations and food, there is not even 5% of the huge amount of money that is sent. It's so sad.
Yeah, dogs are still, and this is, I'm talking about, I'm from Bucharest. I'm talking about Bucharest, or just a bit outside Bucharest. When I say a bit, I'm talking like 10 miles, 5 miles.
Right.
Dogs are everywhere.
Right.
Like absolutely everywhere. And they're still living their life.
Yes. So what kind of, back to England, what is a common trend of dogs that get surrendered more than others?
It's a variety of dogs, and that depends on the rescue policy. Some rescues don't accept dogs with a bite history.
Right.
Don't accept dogs with behavior issues.
Right.
Some are dedicated rescues to a certain breed. So you often get the Beagle rescue, or the Shepherd rescue, or the Malinois rescue. Now they've done something really cool, which is a place, I can't remember the name of it, but dogs that have been in the service, and handlers can't, because they're moving on to the next dog, and they are in the impossibility of keeping them at home. Where are those dogs going? So they're going to a facility, to an organization that takes those dogs, and they maintain them, and then they try to rehome them in suitable homes, if I can put it that way. So
what happens if a dog it's not adoptable one way or another for whatever reasons? Do you guys euthanize? Do you keep them? Do you send them somewhere else? What are the formalities with that?
So the aim would be not to, the last resort would be euthanasia.
Okay.
But the aim would be to try to find as many outlets as possible, if there is some. So there are charities which have a non-euthanasia policy, but they do not accept.
Yeah. That's shitty. That's really shitty.
I can't understand.
In the States all the time. I know exactly what you mean. So you have the same in England. I think I know exactly what you mean, because that was the that was the moment back in the 90s when I was like, okay, I'm just done. I cannot be part of this scam. And it's a scam because it was like, okay, we are a no-kill and we're force-free and we're fear-free, but guess what? We can only take that certain type of dog that we can manage with the ideology and whatever allows us to do. And so there would be, I don't know, Presa Canario or just a young, strong, full of himself dog, and they wouldn't take him because they would not be able, at least in some ways, they're smart that they didn't take them, but
it was a bit unfair
because
for
it will
dog,
expose the whole force-free thing as a science fiction, really, because it's like, I was so upset about this. Like, you know, like there would be dogs that I'm like, this dog just a good dog. He just doesn't know how to follow rules. He just doesn't know what to do with himself. Yes, he's big, yes, he's strong, yes, he can bite somebody, but deep inside the dog has no problems. But they would actually like not even look at them. They would just be like, no, that we're definitely not taking this. We're taking that one and that one and that one. And that was where I was like, okay, I just cannot watch that dog being put down and that dog being taken in, simply because the narrative, the force-free, cannot manage that. So let's put him to sleep. And it was the end of it. Is that kind of what you're talking in England?
Yeah, so there are places like that in England. Luckily, I'm not in one of those places. We are actually accepting everything.
So do you have then dogs that stay, I shouldn't even say long term, but just really being a permanent resident there?
No. Permanent is never a point of reaching permanent. We had long stays, as in, like, when I say long, I mean like 380 something days. That's pretty long.
Yeah, that is long.
But they ended up being rehomed.
Okay.
So there are cases where there's a deep like understanding of we really need to get this dog out of here. And obviously, I don't know how the normal pet owner understands, but the kennel environment, especially where I am based in central London, where it's a concrete jungle,
right?
That kennel environment is not something pleasant,
right?
Imagine that the dogs come there after living 6 years in a house with a garden, being walked every day, and they suddenly are now in a place where it's okay, you got your own space, but it's not as big, and you're going out 2, 3, 4 times a day, and you get some interaction with someone throughout the day, but it's not the same as it was. So the stress that dog has, it's something that probably the previous owners that had a dog have never experienced with that dog.
Right. So you have trainers and dog walkers and like different groups of
so there
volunteers.
are different groups of people. I am part of the behavior team there. That's what it's called. And I work with people that it's called the welfare team, if you want to put it that way, where they look after the dogs, they clean their space, they feed them, they walk them, and then I am there to train. Right? Now, the way that we train, we're trying to get closer to what would happen in real life. For me, putting my hands on the dog, that would be easy not necessarily easy, but I wouldn't have to think like, what do I do now, or how do I move now, but so I'm trying to tell that person to do that, because that will happen when a rehoming situation occurs, right?
Yeah.
So we're trying to put skills into people who have less experience, or they're in a position where that's their job role, And then the information that I put in them is transmitted to the dog, and I'm there to supervise if anything needs to change. Pretty much like what we've done today. We've worked today in these days. We've worked the dogs, and then at a certain point you've noticed something, and you said, okay, let's stop, let's do this, let's do that, based on what you observe in that moment, which is something I do over there.
Keep adapting, keep adjusting.
Keep adapting,
don't
adjusting.
Don't stay on like a plan that's
exactly.
not helping, right?
Exactly. And then once that happens, then and the dog is and it's not just one person. I'm not teaching one person with that dog. That person might have their day off tomorrow. So
and there are people on staff or volunteers?
Yeah, staff.
Okay.
Both.
Okay.
There are staff and volunteers.
Okay.
Right. But for a dog to reach a stage where it's walked by someone less experienced, it has to go through.
Correct.
To have confirmation that okay, this dog is okay to walk right now by someone else. That doesn't have that much experience, right? And I think it's a healthy way of doing it because the people who are coming to rescue the dog, you tell them what you've done to the dog, you tell them how the dog behaved in the past, you tell them how the behavior has been whilst the dog has stayed in there. And it's good because when the dog gets rehomed, those people that actually rehome the dog, they have access to consultations afterwards,
right?
Endlessly.
Okay.
So there's a form of support afterwards. All they need to do is just pick up the phone or write an email, and someone will be there to help. Now, obviously, within my team, there are different people, different skills, different personalities, different. So it's not like it's a variation that will help. Maybe my skills will not help that dog, but maybe my colleagues' skills will actually help that dog.
That's cool.
Besides that, we also have a working section.
Working section
as in we get dogs. We started now to get more Malinois because of John Wick movie.
Shit. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
our sorry to keep your thought, but this is a problem now. This is really becoming a problem. We used to have bully mixes that was across the board, like the majority of the dogs in the kennel. Now you go to certain parts in the country, like Miami, it's completely full with Malinois and not kind of very this sharp, edgy Malinois that are like you seriously would be like, I don't know where would I adopt this, who would take this dog, because they're just very, very weak temperament here. But yeah, they're becoming a
so we do experience that. We have experienced that for a while. And the working session that I mentioned about is, for example, if I take a dog out and I can see, okay, this dog is sharp, is good, is reacting good to certain things, I call the department, I say, hey guys, I've got this dog.
It can work for you.
So this is a department within our organization. What they do is then they contact the army, the police, the prison, and then they come, they see the dog, they do their tests that they normally do, they like the dog, they take it.
That's good. That's good.
One of my first things that I've done there is I rehomed the Malinois to a security place. I don't know what it was, but this dog was so cool.
Yeah.
And he was like I said, full of himself, and he had his personality, and he was adamant that he wants to do stuff, and he didn't care what environment he was in. So when I took the dog to that facility, they put him in this building. They took some toys out, some tags. Dog was like, yeah, bring it on.
Let's go.
So I was like, yeah, no problem. We'll take them. And then one of the most interesting one was a Staffordshire Bull Terrier, who ended up being how would you call it? A sniffer dog.
Yeah.
And works in a prison and has detected so many drugs and so many tobacco and
nice.
Yeah.
No, so this is important. That's these connections, they definitely
and now it's
for
happening
this kind
more
of dogs,
and more often. Yeah. More and more often.
That's cool.
So it's
what about the people, what kind of person you will reject when they apply to get a dog, to adopt a dog? What is the requirements? Where do you draw the lines? No, you cannot have a dog.
So you let's say you tomorrow would like to adopt a dog from that organization. You would fill in your details. and then you can be a person that has never had dogs, and if you want a dog from us, you'll probably get something small and easy and young.
Right.
Or you can be a person who all of his life has had Malinois and suddenly want to rehome one, and we can give you a dog that will fit your
Which
criteria.
is ideal, right?
Yeah, so it's not like a refuse, but it's more of like a what can actually fit you.
So, but do you not do any like a background check? Like, I mean, there are people that are very bad people. Like I tell you, when I was, and I don't know if this is still the case, but back when I used to work at the SPCA, the dog fighting was really big. There was like a extremely big underground community. And what they would do is they would adopt dogs. Like they would send somebody to adopt a dog and basically just literally use it as a bait to teach dogs to fight on that dog. So like, did you
bad.
have, it was horrible. And somehow we got some leads at the time, and but I believe in the States, most of the shelters right now at least run some kind of a background check to where you haven't been charged with some animal abuse or anything like that in order to, I was gonna, so I have Tina and now I have the Chihuahua. I have like 2 dogs. That's as far as I can do at one time. And they both, coming from bad places. But I was gonna have a different, a Yorkie, and I can't remember exactly what it was. And the rescue or the shelter didn't let me adopt it because I couldn't provide proof of vaccinations of some of my dogs, something like this, which, it gets frustrating, but in some way, I think it's very important that places that are adopting, just like with kids, you don't want to give a kid to some weird people that are gonna do some just stupid things, And basically the question is, do you have in England this kind of background something or?
I don't know if it's a background check from like a legal like
exactly.
I don't think that's happening. But what's happening is there's always like a form of interview, and there's always the meetup with the dog.
Right.
And I think that there have been cases where, I've got experience with big dogs, and I have no problem walking them. And then we saw them on the spot, and I said, "This is not
gonna work."
So unfortunately, but it's not like you're not getting it. Okay, we don't think that this dog's personality and attributes are gonna fit yours. This doesn't mean that you cannot have a dog. We've got like several other options. You can consider other options, or at a different time where we can find something. As you know, people, one of the criteria they choose dogs is size or color and stuff like that. Or we can choose something that you find like attractive, right? And then we can fit you at a different time. But unfortunately now this doesn't work. That happens, right? And it can be vice versa. The dog can have like I'm not digging these people. So
of course.
Yeah. So it's not like we do want the dog to go, and we would like the dog to get rehomed, but just how those people have managed to reach that position to actually meet the dog, and the dog was like, I'm not really. The next ones will come, right?
Right.
So it's there have people who have been refused, or it happens that people come and they meet the dog and they go, I don't think the dog is for us. I know we've showed our interest, and we know the breed, and we had the same breed in the past, or a mix of the breed, or whatever the situation is. But then that dog shows to be too much for them in those moments, and they quickly realize that, okay, maybe this is too much than what we can actually do for this animal. So I think we're gonna take a step back and wait a bit longer until. So it's not like it used to be, where people would. This is like years ago in this organization, where mentalities were different, where people will come in and say, I want a white one.
Sure.
This is like our selection of white dogs. Pick one. Yes. It used to be like that. Yes. But then things change, and then medical insurance is involved, and then liability is involved, and then there's like laws that you cannot have. The law in England about having what it's called a dangerous dog, it's pretty tough.
Tell me about that.
They can take your dog away like that.
So what is the definition of a dangerous dog? Is it like they just say, okay, this breed is dangerous, and that's
so that's
go?
a separate issue. Separate issue with breeds. And we can talk about that in a bit.
Yeah.
But then what we'll class a dangerous dog, it's a dog that's out of control and that has basically bitten another dog or a person.
Just one time.
One time, it triggers an investigation, and if it's not serious, as in if the dog hasn't like ripped someone's hand off or open up their then the dog goes on a preventative list, right?
Yeah.
And then that list is there, and then if the issue reoccurs, then the dog is being taken away.
Okay. Yeah. That
kind of
that's cool.
When it comes to the breeds, then that's a separate.
You have that too, right?
We do, yeah. The United Kingdom, you are not allowed to own a pit bull, a Tosa Inu.
But you call them Staffordshire Terrier, so then you can, right? It's just ridiculous, right?
I know, but it's like the American Pit Bull Terrier. It's right.
Sure.
But and then it's recently it's done with XL Bullies. Now XL Bully is not a breed; it's a
it is a designer, whatever
exactly.
we call them, right?
Right. And unfortunately, last year, and it's continued to be this year, where there have been some unfortunate events between these dogs in this type of like group.
Yeah, because it's the people too.
Obviously, where dogs have done like they went far. They've like killed people.
Right.
And then the issue was becoming more and more. I experienced it in the news. I would read this person dog attack in a park. XL bully bit 4 people. Okay, 3 days later, dog attack. XL bully bit a child, and it was one after another. Now I'm not sure.
They were really ex-bullies, or because you know how sometimes the media just is like, oh yeah, let's just make sensations.
So some of them had an actual picture of the dog. Some of them had a standard picture of the dog. So you never. That was my next point. I was like, it's media. I don't know if it's like. And once it's in the media, you get the public involved, and once the public gets involved, the government gets involved, and then there's the machine. So it's. Basically, they ended up banning these dogs.
And banning means what? What does that mean?
Banning means if I want to, it's illegal to own and breed. If you had one at the time, you had to get it exempt.
But you can sort of like right now, if I'm in London, I cannot buy a puppy. No.
I mean, you can if there's an illegal one.
Of course.
Right. But from a legit point of view, you can't.
But I can buy one and say that that's some kind of mixed breed of whatever, and
so you can say you can buy one. You can say that it only takes someone to go to call the police and say, I've got my neighbor who's got an XL bully. And then the police gets involved, and then you will have a check from someone who's delegated by the police to understand if that dog is. They have their own criteria of how that judgment is made. And if that person determines you've got an XL bully, you've got the option of giving it away, which means euthanizing, because that's the answer to not being able to own that breed.
What about the other ones? I mean, whatever. Dogo Argentino.
So Dogo Argentino is forbidden.
It is.
Tosa Inu, and Pitbull mixes. And now XL bullies.
But you would take them in a shelter, or what happens?
So we would take them in the shelter, but because the charity is under direct guidance by not direct, but the charity is respecting the law in England.
Of course.
If someone, so you have an XL bully and someone reports you, and then you say, well, I don't want to give it to the police, I'll hand it to the charity. The charity, and this is not just where I work, this is everywhere. The charity will put the dog to sleep. You can get caught on the street. It only takes someone to
Can you send a dog out of country if it's an option?
This doesn't apply to Scotland.
There you go.
So
there is always a crack in the door somewhere, right?
So there is that possibility. And if I remember correctly, this has happened where dogs
Is
have...
anybody trying to fight those legislations?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
How do you feel about that personally? I mean, do you think it's a good thing to ban the whole thing, or what? What do you think? I know these are very tough questions.
It's a tough question because I'm looking at what happens in the UK as a working community. And there's a big legacy.
It's a working community, mean like the sport dog community,
the sport or like certain
army.
Activities related to sport, right?
Yeah, okay.
And in those areas, there is no requirement for FCI papers, so anyone can compete. And in those moments, you get these Excel bullies or crosses between and that, and then that and that. And it's related to bite work and related to a lot of things that don't really make sense to me, but they happen, right?
Yeah.
And some of the dogs there that I've seen, some of them live, some of them on videos, those are some like serious dogs, like those dogs will do some damage.
Yes.
Right? And some of them you don't need to do anything like technical training. They will just do it, right? And unfortunately, those dogs and those are offsprings, and it only takes like one or two to contain that, and then to be passed on to the average pet owner, and then unfortunate events happen in the street.
Do you find their temperament stable, or are they very twitchy, very reactive to things?
Most of them are okay. Most of them are pretty stable. You get the odd that just goes beyond.
Right.
And because there's lack of training by the time it gets to a certain age from people, from the average pet owner who doesn't seek training for the dog that they have, at some point that click is being made and the dog realizes, well, I can do some nasty stuff, and I for some reason I enjoy it.
Yes.
And
I know what you mean.
And if you don't give me the opportunity, I'll find my opportunity, and then that's how it happens. So is it people? Yes, because they don't know what they're getting themselves into. Is it the dogs? Yes and no, because the dog needs to get it out, but he can't get it out because he's with the person that is not giving the opportunity to get it out. So it's I can see both. I don't think euthanasia is the answer, because that just came out of a sudden. They lived okay up until then. A bit of push from media, and then suddenly they were like devil on earth.
Was there any discussion, or was it just we making decision and?
No, the government was discussing, because the government is responsible for the public, and the public was highlighting there are issues with this type of dogs. Now, obviously,
did anybody try to defend them?
Absolutely,
like in a good, reasonable way.
Yes, yes, they did. There were people who are involved with dog trainers, and people who I've seen, and they're decent dog trainers who try to fight it. There's been protests in London, hundreds of people, and not just once.
Right. Because imagine if we
still
just switch the topic and we all of a sudden start talking about people, that would be like, what are you doing?
Right.
How can you put a whole group of people as a group and label them as dangerous and bad people? That's just
no. I don't think that's the case. No, absolutely no. So it's. I think that people have the best intention having those. And again, the reason why they choose an XL bully or a dog that's in an XL bully is because they probably had
something. Yeah.
There is something that attracted them, right? So I truly believe they had the best intention in their heart, right? And there are people who were heartbroken.
I love the Mastiff type of I know if I somehow in my next life am born somewhere in the mountains, I will be surrounded with these kind of dogs, and it would be the best thing ever,
I was just showing Chris some Presa Canarios from a friend of mine who breeds them in Romania.
Right.
Some stunning animals.
Right.
So I know what you're saying,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, you cannot not admire
They're
it.
like
You just
you're attracted to
a
them.
very special thing, of course. But there is some responsibility that has to come along and some understanding, and it's not just like, oh yeah, let's. What about? I know I'm jumping, but I'm curious. What's the deal with training? Prong collar, electric collar, choke chain, no pull harness, gentle leader. What do you do in your place? What's okay to do?
In my place, they tend to be as far away from using any tools as possible, which is something that I've taken on as a journey because
Is it because of donations or
no,
is it public?
No, I don't think it has
just
anything
truly
to do
believing that that's not the
I
right
don't think
way.
it has anything to do with donations. I think it has everything to do with
Science says it's better this
with
way.
society, which includes this aspect as well. My first experience with this was when I moved from Romania to the UK. It's like two different planets. It's two different realities, right? Now, the UK does not have a ban on the e-collar. They were working
They
on
were fighting so hard
They were
to
fighting
make
so
that
h-
happen.
so hard.
I mean, that was almost like, that almost happened and somehow
it got stopped. And I remember I've sent you something and you had a look. And I remember then you said, well, look at England. They're banning the e-collar, but not for the military dogs.
Right.
Or there's no ban for
Right.
electric fences.
Right.
Which doesn't make any sense,
Right.
then that was probably used. And again, this was like I don't like to discuss politics, but that's how we ended up, because they're making the decisions, right? They're banning it. They have the ability to ban it. But then people have brought in arguments and then it got stopped.
So would you get in trouble talking about this right now with the place you're working for?
No?
Okay.
No, I'm entitled to my own opinions.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When I'm there.
You never know. Like sometimes.
When I'm there, am I doing it here?
Right.
No. So
right.
when I do my Mondio dogs.
Yeah, I get it, but sometimes it's so paranoid, the whole environment, that it's like.
No, I have the ability to like differentiate myself until the point where I think is ridiculous, and then I think my personality and then working there has found ways to do some form of change, maybe because everything when I think the force-free concept takes you out of the picture as a human being and makes food and harnesses more important than the interaction with the dog. So I think you can transmit to the dog with your attitude sometimes more than you can do with a piece of dry biscuit.
Right.
So like working with people and then trying to teach them, like, change your attitude a bit, be a bit more, give a bit more direction. We had, this was very interesting. After about 3 years of being there, we had a trainer there to deliver training from, like, an outside trainer. And he came, and you know how everything, the ideal force-free element would be, we will take a dog out, we will try to do stuff, and then whatever option the dog takes is, if it's good, it's okay. If it's not good, well, I guess we'll try again, right?
Right.
Now, this dog trainer came in, and it was funny because he's a ex-Mondio decoy, and there's traits in him as a person that you still see in his ability to train dogs, right? So he did this exercise where he put something down, and then he positioned himself in a way that the dog doesn't get access to it. And then he actually said that I'm not letting the dog go there, right? Which in my mind goes against, like, well, if the dog wants to go there, it's force-free, right? It's like, you don't put any pressure. And I specifically asked him, can you explain why it's important not to allow the dog, so you're doing something against,
Right.
right? And he said, well, if I do it, then all my work up until, if I don't do it, all my work up until that point just goes out the window.
Yeah.
And then if I try to do it next time, it's going to be 10 times harder because the dog already has.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah. So it was very interesting because I specifically asked that question, and then a lot of like, I felt around me like a lot of like minds like open and said, okay, it's actually okay to like be putting yourself in a position where you can coordinate more than you're being allowed to believe you can, if that makes any sense. And in the last 3 or 4 years, I think people have changed in the UK somehow, at least the people I interact with. It used to be when 2015, when I went and I said, yeah, back in Romania, we use like pinch collars and
Yeah.
oh my God, oh, like now it's not like that. Oh, now it's a bit like, oh, okay. And yeah, I personally don't do it, but I can see like, tell me more about it.
But let's say if there is a dog in the rescue and it's about to get adopted, and you know that something like a prong collar could be the break point to actually they can be successful controlling the dog, but you cannot advise them to, right?
We cannot, you cannot advise
You cannot,
that. No,
right?
no.
So what is your option? What is your next option then when you feel that what would be, probably you're just not gonna adopt the dog to these people, or like how would you have them control a dog that is, again, well, the dog Argentino, we said it's against the law.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
but let's say some very rambunctious German
Strong
Shepherd
dog that
is
drags you
working
everywhere.
lines and it's just like starting to walk on the street and just acts like any very typical working German Shepherd. Is like full of himself. He's like, no, I am taking you on a walk, and
Yeah.
we're barking at anything it comes.
Those type of things are being there. We try to tackle them right there. So if we have a dog that comes in and he pulls you all over the place, but he's very playful, we see them around dogs to see
Yeah.
if we take them out in the public, is he gonna try and kill a dog or another dog, or is he like sociable, right? So we see all of that, and then there's something that it's obviously there's every dog gets medically checked. And if there are problems there, if the dog was like, you're not gonna touch me, we work on that as well. So the dog will not end up a rehoming point until all these normal life situations are being checked and tackled, right? So if there's a dog which is very, very strong, it's not gonna end up being rehomed unless he works a bit on like being rehomed. And I know what your next question is gonna be.
So you might as well answer it.
Yeah. So they
I like it.
they try with what the how do I say this? With what the
Yeah, whatever is within the acceptable in
Yeah.
the ideology.
yeah,
Right.
and then there's people like me who step in afterwards, right? Where we try to change the attitude of the handler a bit, because the people who are trying to work with those dogs they're young, and their knowledge is what is presented, right? Some of them are just from the bench of the schools,
Right.
and they're straight in there. And I think you had this chat with what's her name, with Joe Rosie, when she mentioned, like, I'm afraid of people who are leaving the bench of schools and going straight into working with dogs without having the practical experience of working with dogs. So they need a form of practical experience. But
Right.
before I put a person who's less experienced with a big dog that is going to go, you're going to come with me, at least I try to get them to understand some moves and the way they move and the way they act with the dog that allows them to do so. And then when the game changes, because it's a bigger dog, and I said, well, you know what you have to do,
Right.
tweak it a bit. Yeah. So in my head, it gets better and better with each case.
So you're saying that you will get that kind of dog. I wouldn't say necessarily difficult or whatever, but
Yeah.
a dog that would respond quicker if you're using certain training equipment, but you find a way to make it work and last and make transition successfully without it.
Not all of them.
No.
Not all of them.
Good.
Not all of them. No,
I
absolutely not.
I hope
No.
you would say no, because that would be amazing. If that's possible, we all need to know how.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. No.
Okay.
No, absolutely not. It's not always the case.
Okay. So at this point in UK, if you say, hey, I'm a dog trainer and I have a prong collar or pinch collar, what's the response typically?
Nowadays,
Yeah.
some people may say, oh, you're such a bad person. Some people may say, great. Some people may say, I don't really care. It's a mix of, there's still, I felt a change. So when I came and I changing as in like there's more realization. I don't know if realization or acceptance.
Understanding that it's needed.
Understanding that is needed.
In some situations.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Because,
interesting.
Because there's people that I see working with dogs and they have no problem using pinch collars, slip leads, e-collars, and advertising their business so. If they were really going with the flow, they wouldn't have, and then they would do it without.
Right.
But they do it with absolutely no problem. And those people actually make like the real, like proper changes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And for me personally, it was when I went there in 2015, you couldn't talk about that because you would be like, you would be looked at, right? You would be judged immediately. I remember I had a chat with someone and I said, oh, I'm from Romania and I want to get involved in like more working stuff here. And like, and that someone said, so he was introducing me to someone else. So this is Nake, he's from Romania. He's been teach to train dogs the Romanian way.
Yeah.
What the fuck does the Romanian way means? Like,
yeah, you had a bad
right,
childhood.
so you can see where we like clashed.
Yes,
I never ended up working
yes,
with that person.
yes.
But, and how I felt then, I don't feel like that now. It's somehow interesting because there's been people, and I know you've been like in contact with a few people from the UK who were adamant and trying to do the right thing and trying to fight any form of bans and stuff like that. And those people have been very vocal in the UK. Mm-hmm. And despite the fact that the audience is divided, it's better for me. It's better now than how it was.
Interesting.
Years ago. I don't have any problem saying that when I train I use. I don't have any problem saying that my handlers at my Mondioring fell. It's like open. You can watch my videos on my social media and it's there. And if someone asks me, I'll say, and what I mean, like I don't like we discussed this the other day. I don't go into arguments on social media whatsoever. But I'm happy to have a conversation with someone, like a verbal face-to-face conversation. I'm happy to do that, but to waste my time and go on,
which is a waste of time for sure.
So for me, it's generally better now than what it was years ago. I don't know where the change has made, but I think the people that were adamant and they have actually made, I don't know if...
How do they feel about protection sports? Like here, there is, I mean, of course you have levels of crazy, right? You have some people that are actually quite reasonable that I totally respect. It's like, no, I choose to train without using aversives and I'll do whatever. It can take longer or it can whatever, and it's cool because it's interesting. It's actually interesting to watch it, even if it's a struggle, but there is a different, like, okay, how do I accomplish something, right? But then there is like different levels to the point where they teach, even in some of the big, like you take some behavior classes in university, or if you're a veterinarian and you're going through the American veterinary behavior is school thing, and they would say, they would give you some pointers like, well, if somebody has on the website these keywords, protection training, Schutzhund, it basically a whole list of keywords that really puts you immediately into a certain category of very bad trainer that it's against the force-free movement. And we need to somehow eliminate them and shut them down. What is what's happening?
I don't feel that is happening in England.
That's interesting.
It's interesting, and there are companies in England who that's what they do. They take dogs, they raise them.
No, but we do too. It's not like that. That's the cool thing about the States. Nobody can shut anybody down because that's not something.
Okay, I think I know what you're saying. Works, so you get the odd person who goes like, "Oh, you're doing protection sports. I don't like them." But you should see that the PSA exploded. The Mondioring is bigger.
Yeah.
And then you've got the protection side as well, where there's actually a need.
So like if you go with your puppy,
yeah,
you have a 8-month-old golden doodle,
right?
And you walk into the vet clinic to get your shots with a prong collar on. What happens?
Some vets may, and this is like a true story. I can show you,
right.
Like it happened. Some, you walk into that clinic and you may receive an advice like, that's not the right way to do it. You should take that off because you'll get all these problems.
Yeah.
Or you can walk into a vet clinic and you will go, you're here for your shot? Okay, here's the shot. See you later.
Yeah.
So it's not a spread out.
So it's similar.
Yeah.
It's similar here. Depending on where that's happening, there is,
I personally had to do it. I've worked with a Doberman, which even I had to like really be careful when I was getting closer to like handling him, and he was moving. He needed a shot for traveling abroad, and I took the dog to to get his vaccination required to travel, and I had to muzzle him. That was the only way we can actually go forward with that procedure.
Right.
But he had a pinch collar on,
yeah.
and the person who did it was like, "This is such a stunning animal. Can I take a picture of it?" Like, so it's not a complete. You're not receiving a punch in your face if you have that.
Okay.
You see dogs walking on the street with it at times, not as often.
Yeah.
But there are. They get the odd look.
What like typically streets of London? What would you see? Harnesses?
A combination between
halties, like what?
In 10 dogs, you would see 4 harnesses, 5 normal collars, and maybe 1 halty. And normally that's on a very, very big dog.
Mm-hmm. But you wouldn't see anybody walking with an electric collar on the dog.
I've seen.
I mean, if you've seen it, it's like some weird exception. It's not a lie, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting to hear this because I'm planning to do something in England, and eventually I don't know, but I haven't. Yeah. I think it was maybe 2000. Who knows, 8, 9. The last time I was doing something in England, so I don't know I mean, I know what's going on, but it's very different walking on the street and seeing actually what's up, instead of reading. What about this latest? Well, it's not so recent anymore, but the whole thing with the guide dog schools and how they went all force-free, and there was something that, from what I heard, they were not able to get dogs trained, and then their excuse was that it was because of COVID and not because of that they changed totally to force-free. Do you know anything about the guide dog stuff?
I don't know much. What I do know is that they, and I'm talking about a specific place. That's my only knowledge about the specific place who's working with dogs for as guidance dogs. they breed their own dogs, and then whichever dog makes it through their training program. I have no idea what that training program is in details, but they have a training program that at the end the dog is classified or certified as a guide dog. Whichever dog is not suitable, they get rehomed as normal pets. And we're talking about Labradors mainly.
And they're not using anything.
No, I don't know of any.
I wish one day I
guide dog
get
training.
the opportunity to talk to one of the trainers.
But for me, it kind of like it makes sense, because if that you probably have a notion of what a guide dog means.
Right.
Now, based on the training that is received there, you also have the criteria of accrediting the dog or not. So, in their view, probably it makes sense as well. Well, we have this criteria, the dog fits it. We've reached this stage in this way. We just carry on.
I'm just curious how high of a quality what does it mean to certify a dog? Is it
I have absolutely
some
no
little
idea.
pattern? Is it, who knows? Maybe I will go and just be a pedestrian and watch their training.
I've seen guide dogs on the street.
Yeah. No, I'm sure you have, but it's different to train a dog.
Yeah, absolutely.
And basically, if you cannot tell the dog, don't do that. That's a bad idea. Don't do that. But you have to deflect it to do something else because they prefer to do, because you make them prefer to do that.
Right.
But you never really address, don't do that, because you cannot. That's very,
That's
in my
interesting. Yeah,
opinion,
I
very
can see your
scary
point of view,
place for a guide dog.
Yeah, because it's someone else depending on that dog.
It's a very scary thing, you know?
Unfortunately, that's one area which I haven't been in contact much, and everything that I kind of know, I know from like stories, which I don't know how valid they are, and I don't know much in detail, like I said earlier.
Right.
And I can understand, I can see the nuance of what you're trying to say. If it's something that it can be life-changing.
I want to, like, I know how to train dogs in with or without, or I can train dogs. And there are certain things that I am very puzzled. How would you train? Especially when you're having a guide dog. How do you tell that guide dog that don't walk on the street because a car's coming? What do you do? And what do you do if you tell the dog go left at the curb instead of right or forward, and the dog decides not to do what you ask them to do? Where do you go? Right. Don't, like somebody telling me, like how, I'm sure you've listened to Susan Garrett on my podcast.
Yeah.
Like anytime somebody is so stubborn to tell me, well, it just works. You do it so long and that's how it works. It's like, that's not how it works. Just like we will sometimes say, yeah, I know what you want me to do, but I want to do this time, this way, even if I have to pay the consequences for it. And dogs are super example of this,
right?
You know, when it's your pet dog, it's a different story. But when you are visually impaired and you say go this way and the dog just doesn't want to go, or is going the wrong way, you have to convince them to do the right thing.
Right, yeah, correct.
And I'm very curious how that works. Like, I'm genuinely curious. What do you do? Anyway,
I don't know from that point of view, but you've raised my interest now. I'm gonna have to try to find out.
Yeah.
None of the things that are public or you can look into it at a click of a button would make sense anyway.
Right.
Because I don't know, like I said earlier, there's this, like, we're breeding for this. Now,
Yes.
You can't tell me you're breeding dogs that don't turn left, right?
But even when you have 15 generations of beautiful selection, that doesn't mean that you will say, do this, and the dog says, yes, that's what I'm going to do, and never crosses their mind to do something else.
Right.
That's just not nature.
maybe then that dog is eliminated somehow, and then it's out of I don't know, out of 10 dogs in training, maybe there's just 2 left at the end.
I hope somebody wants to talk about this, because it's very interesting. I would think if there is a trainer in this, like it's a guide dog trainer, and it's all force free, it should be a very easy conversation. It's like, well, that's what I do. Like, I can tell you anything with my dogs what I do. I mean, you've seen it actually, but it's like, yeah, in that situation, that's what I do, and that's what I do, and that's what I do. It's very, there is nothing hidden. But again, I don't want to go back to that podcast with Susan Garrett, but when she insisted to have that little video clip of the dog doing a retrieve and how he was chewing and how all of a sudden he's not chewing, and I was supposed to be like, wow, this is mind-blowing. No, it's not mind-blowing. This is a everyday training that this is silly, actually. It's very easy, and it's fun thing to do, to accomplish. Right. But when I ask you, what did you do? And you're just
circling around,
not wanting or not knowing, but I'm trying for like good 10 minutes to get an answer. Okay, so what if the dog chews? And you're telling me that it will never, ever chew. And this is where I say this is bullshit.
Right.
Like, it's just bullshit. Like, you are trying to, like, you can tell this to somebody and they may believe it. But to just tell me flat out that that's what, that, and never nothing else happens.
And is it right if she would have told you that?
You lost all of your credibility for me to listen to anything you say at this point, The no-kill shelters or any of the shelters that are very, religiously, okay, no, these are the rules and it's not ethical and whatever, then they don't accept difficult dogs that need help and can be helped. So, okay, we're very successful. No, you're not successful, because we are extremely highly selective of which dog you take in. And typically, any of those dogs that come in, they don't need no training whatsoever. I mean, they need training, but if you don't, it's not the end of the world. They're not going to do nothing more than
nothing dramatic,
eating your sandwich from the table, right? It's no big deal. When you have the dogs, like the police in Germany, it's like, okay, well, you can use the electric collar only in deployment. No, how was it? You can use the prong collar, but you cannot use it in training. It's like, what is that?
That doesn't make no sense.
I need it in training, not in deployment.
Right.
I need it in training, so I don't need it in deployment. But you cannot, because you're pressured by the animal rights activists, and you have no courage to say, well, it works, and there is no better option. But you give some weird excuse, just as we said earlier with the law that was supposed to go in England in the beginning of the year, that didn't, that there was that exemption of military dogs.
Right.
If there is that exemption, you're basically clearly saying that there is times where
it's needed,
what you're doing is not going to work. Or if it's going to work, it's not going to work better.
Right.
That's where it gets frustrating. And then you have somebody like Zach George who's like, oh, I'm going to bring you all the evidence of the animal behavior scientists. It's like, no, that's not, like, all these people are twisting and misleading and highly, like, grossly misrepresenting actual factual science because they have to. Okay, I'm just going hot.
That's
on
all
this.
right. What do you think of well, let me ask you something. What do you think of a person who acknowledges and understands the benefit of doing so, but chooses not to? As in, like, their own personal
I think
preference?
it's fine too. Like, I think,
Because they will probably not go on a journey to become,
right. I mean,
to train a dog for, like, deployment into, like,
sure,
like
sure,
in a field where there's,
sure.
in a war zone, right?
But we trained Kimba, my Malinois, for what, 5 days, twice a day. How many times you heard her or you saw her yelping or twitching because of electric collar or prong collar, while she had both on her, right?
Right.
It's nothing to be discussed, and anybody can watch any video of that training and replay it 100 times and give it to the graduate students and let them evaluate and do all the cortisol and whatever. I mean, the cortisol is another big shitty idea that's supposed to indicate
Right.
which is, but there is none of that, basically. So then what are we talking about? And then, yeah, I mean, I have a bunch of other dogs, and yeah, they don't need electric collar.
Yeah, we discussed about that the other day. Yeah, when
It's like,
you
why?
actually had, like, evidence on, like, when you took the dogs
Why?
out, and they were like, "It's there, but I ain't gonna use it." It's like, okay, it's there, but the dogs are having their own fun. I put them back. I
Right.
take out the other one. I don't need to put this on. She ain't gonna chase nothing.
Right.
She's like,
Sure, I can put some electric collar on the little Rocky, my Chihuahua now. It's like, why? I can call him 20 times and he doesn't want to come, so what? It's not the end of the world. I
Yeah,
don't care. I actually laugh at him because he's hiding there and he's like, oh, I'm not coming. It's like, okay. It's
funny
cool.
enough, when
That's
you
actually
came
cool.
the other morning with him, he was like right next to you. He
Right.
came and interacted with me a bit, and then you left and he followed you.
You know that video that I made, what science says about aversives? And the only thing all of them can talk about is how outdated the studies that I point out are.
Right, right.
Like you're basically saying, well, if Galileo said that the Earth's not going around the sun, that was very long time ago, and he's probably wrong. He must be wrong. It's like, what the fuck? Like, but nobody tried to address something as I address it there and argue as on something specific. It's all general. So this is all stuff. We have moved on from there. We know better, and you're just stuck in, yeah. And the most interesting part in the video was that I had a bunch of dogs with scarves and whatever, and some had electric collars, and some didn't. And I had an open question. It's like, you're watching me. As I'm talking, the camera is going around and showing you a bunch of dogs. Some have electric collars on, and by all evidence that you believe in,
point out
you
which
should
one
be
has
able
it
to say
point
that
out.
dog is a complete mess, emotionally and physically, and we don't even know if we can rehab him.
Right.
This is end of story. Nobody would dare to go there.
What I was gonna say is, you actually said it in a few podcasts, and not just in one, but in multiple ones, and they were far apart from each other. So it wasn't anything fresh that you were taking from one podcast to another. Where you said, if there's a way that will make a dog perform whatever the behavior is without
Right.
using it, I will.
Right.
Or, yeah.
Show me. Let's go.
Yeah.
I want to know.
And
I
then-
want to know.
And then in the same podcast, you say, well, biology or however, whatever angle you are, chemistry, whatever angle you want to look at it, you're meant to be attracted with what you like,
Right.
and you're meant to stay away
and avoid something that yes,
so
fundamental shit.
this is not related, when you say that this is not related to dogs in particular, this is related to absolutely everything, right? Why don't I cross the red light? Because I know I can get it pretty bad, right?
No, I mean you plant a little plant and the sun shines here and not here. That plant is coming here if it likes sun, or it stays right in the border if it is 50-50. But that plant makes choices that are deeply programmed. It's not a...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So in that situation, when you gave the example earlier of Susan Garrett with the retrieve and the chewing.
Right. You watched this, right?
Yeah. And you were trying to get an answer. If she would have said, I've done this specifically and it worked,
right,
you would have tried it, and if it worked, it would have been the way, right?
Right.
Not necessarily been the way from now from this point on, but it would have been something that it was in your arsenal of skills to use from that point forward. Because probably what she did, whatever it was, work with one dog doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna work with the...
But even if it did work with one dog, it's like, tell me what it is so I can do it.
Yeah.
But if you cannot tell me, like if you cannot explain to a trainer how to do it, and just say, well, I don't even recall exactly what it was, but it's like it just works, and it's just a matter of, I mean, it was so vague that there is nothing that I can go home and try. Nothing.
Right.
Right? So at this point, we're just talking. We're just might as well be on the keyboard. And it's like, oh, yeah, I'm... This is frustrating.
So where do you think these things are going to go?
Right.
Because there's a clear understanding of where the actual natural way of training, or whatever you want to call it, it's beneficial. And
it's
then
hard, man. Like I go back and forth sometimes like the moment we get to that conversation, immediately there is a question. It's like, well, what about licensing trainers? Okay, but who's going to license them? Who is that body that can say you are a good trainer and you can do that or you cannot do that? It's definitely not our American Veterinary Behavior Society, because what they preach is so wrong. Like the whole thing is so wrong. I don't know. And the bad thing is that we see all the time dogs being abused one way or another.
Right.
And I mean, to where it really, they're videos that are just incredibly hard to watch. And they kind of stay with you, and it's just so messed up. And you're like, why in the world? And who told you that this works even? Like, how do you come up with this kind of shit? Like, you should not be training dogs. But yeah, I think as far as that, I think we have laws in place already. And anytime somebody gets exposed, that clearly it's not some accident, and like it's very intentional and it's repeatable, and that's who they are and that's what they do. It's very easy. I mean, they can go to jail just as we have the laws in the States right now for animal abuse. There is nothing more to add to that. But, you know, because somebody hits somebody with a car because they didn't stop on a traffic light or whatever the reason, it doesn't mean that I shouldn't drive a car. Like, that never crosses nobody's mind, right?
Right. It's funny. It's interesting when you make those comparisons,
right?
But they're not used in the in a actual real sense of them. They actually are very meaningful. What you just said, right?
Yeah, because it's not that we're justifying people that are really just so wrong with like they should not have they should not be around animals, period. And that's easy. Just like, you're a pedophile and you, for whatever reason, and there is restrictions and there is laws and there is consequences.
Of course, yeah.
Right? But it doesn't mean that that's what the laws are about. It's like you cannot have this kind of broad, and when you decide to have, certification in a very grand scale, just like the same thing with Germany right now. They have to be a professional dog trainer. You have to pass a written test, and in the written test there is few questions, not one but few, that you have to check that no aversives are not to be used because they're bad and there is plenty of evidence, and that's very unethical and very abusive and so on and so on. And you cannot become a dog trainer unless you check that, a professional licensed dog trainer in Germany.
So do you think that's dictated by the law that's in Germany right now, where the zoos are forbidden?
Well, the law dictates it, but the law was those points were put in there by they're influenced by the force-free community.
Right.
That's what it is. And eventually, now we are at the point that where we have so many dog trainers that are licensed that they have agreed that that's a bad idea, because otherwise they cannot be a dog trainer.
Right.
So now, all of a sudden, we have...
That feels like constriction. That
right.
feels like
now, all of a
constricted.
sudden, it's such a manipulation. It's such a horrible way to manipulate. But ultimately, now they have the governing body, the ideology advocates, and then all these professional trainers that don't agree, but they actually have said that they agree, otherwise they cannot be professional dog trainers, that force-free is the right way and the only way to train. For a country like Germany, something like this to get reversed, it's extremely difficult at this point, and I'm hoping that that's not going to happen ever here. I think we're doing a very good job of having those people sit down. As loud as they are, this somehow we are still very confident and able to prevent it because it's a nonsense. It's science fiction. This whole thing is a...
But do you think that this parallel race, it's something that's keeping attention on it? What if, for example, from tomorrow, me and you and everyone else that understands how it works entirely would stop paying attention to it?
Stop paying attention, meaning...
As in not getting involved in any arguments, any...
then it's like within a month, legislation will be passed all over the place. And
oh, really?
I mean, yeah, if we are not active and we are not standing up and saying no, what you're saying, it's really, I mean, it's actually ridiculous. It has no place in, like, if you have a PhD and you're trying to convince people of this, like, your diploma should be burned. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
But if we are quiet, it's going to end up like in Germany, for sure.
So do you think there's an edge? There's like...
there was a moment. I think right now that's not possible, and I hope we do even better. I have some really big ideas of, those original studies that came that basically led to this big frenzy of let's ban this because it's bad, because science says, like there is 3 studies that were really, very harmful, very poorly conducted, with the point to say, let's get away from this because it's bad, but not because it's bad, but because we will make the study and we will show you that it's bad, and we will twist everything that we need to do in the study to show you that it's bad. And that's not how it should work. And so I'm really thinking that they're very easy to debunk and show, no, there is big holes in that study, and we can do exactly the same if you, this is another very crazy thing, because these 3 studies that I'm talking about, if somebody, there is none of the studies that are done that have been ever repeated. Right. They cannot be repeated simply because the studies have so many flaws that you don't even get the right description of what was done so you can repeat it. This is how bad they are.
Right.
I mean, this is like, at that point,
how
that
can
should
you make
be
a study
enough.
without
That should
the
be
details
enough,
of why the study is being done?
Right.
Do you think it was just random, or do you think it was just conducted with a purpose at that time? Do you think it's just
it's an agenda. It's an agenda. It's clearly you
so
make
it was more of a thing of like, let's do this quick.
You started backwards.
And then
you
we'll
start
just use
with
it.
the conclusion, shock collars are bad, and now let's run it backwards and prove that. Well, that's not a study. That's not how science does things.
You're basically
like
making
you
the study
shouldn't-
look that way.
You should,
if you
if
call
you're
it a
gonna
study.
make true study, and you should be genuinely interested in the outcome, whatever that outcome is, without trying to pull the rug
You're right.
in your
Yeah.
favor. That's not what it's about.
So what would you think would happen if these 3 studies would, this particular 3, right?
We'll find out.
Would be recreated.
Right. They will fail. They
Not
will-
necessarily in the same manner, but even
Right.
if a better one, and
Right.
the results are nowhere near what they've received the first time.
Which is what I tend to believe that that's what the outcome will be, simply because of
Well, we've done that
doing
last 5
40
days.
years ago, right? If it shows otherwise, yeah, I have no problem. If it shows that it's bad, I have no problem.
Right. So,
Like
and then-
we did that study. We did this one study right now, like last year, and we compared dogs. We taught them we selected them that they're very instinctively, they're very strong chasers. So anything that moves, they get triggered and they chase. So we had a lure course, and we selected the dogs that are very, very, very into it. And then we said, okay, we divide them in 3 groups, and the one will be with the electric collar, the other ones will be in 2 different approaches with force-free ways. And they failed. Every single dog failed. And every single dog with the electric collar succeeded.
right.
But because it succeeded, on top of that, there were no negative side effects, no long-term, they were very eager to come on the field. They were very playful. They were very normal dog without no stress. And all the cortisol and all the things, the force-free actually had a way higher stress levels because they ended up running and not being able to stop and so on. But anyway, there was a study, there was an outcome. They don't like that outcome.
Has it been put aside, or has it been?
It cannot be put aside anymore. It's a matter of time
Right.
that it's going to come out. You can keep
Has it been ignored?
There is a reluctance to become public.
Okay, reluctance is a better one. Right. Okay.
Because of the pressure that they're gonna have to, I mean, there's gonna be, probably they're gonna have even simple questions like, why would you make that study? What's the point to prove that, and why are we going backwards? It's like, no, we are not going backwards, and we are proving actually something that was a huge misconception and very misleading to everybody.
We're just taking that point and making it like reality, how it actually is.
And if you don't think so, I welcome you to do it again. We can do this study 100 times, and you can come with any ideas that you want to do.
Right.
That's fine. And I don't believe that you will ever do better through any form of positive and differential reinforcement without use of aversive. You cannot beat that because, again, but even if you have some success, the point is that aversives can be used and they don't have this dramatic,
extreme long side
effects that they want you to believe. Like you don't scare people based on something that is not real.
Right.
You cannot do that.
Do you think that language, specific targeted language, has a role in all of this? And I'm talking about words like correction, consequence, long-term side effects. Do you think that the usage of those words reach people and they make them? Because when you let's take unfortunately between people there's cancers, right?
Right.
And then you get treatment for it, yeah, which has side effects.
That's another thing.
Make people believe that,
like, you will have the force-free advocates and the whole, the whatever organizations and veterinary organizations that are promoting and advocating for it. They are shutting this down, and they're going out and giving seminars and basically monopolizing the industry and profiting of eliminating competition, not because it's unethical, not because there is no proof of that, but because I need you as a client, and that doesn't work. No, that works. You have not proven that doesn't work. Like, you never have proven that.
Right.
And that actually works most of the time better than what you're doing. So why do you not want to talk about this? Why do you not want to talk about? Why do you have these conferences and these gatherings, and you talk to people that are, everybody's thinking like yourself? It's like, oh yeah, this is the way. It's like, no, like, that's not how it should work. We should be able to talk, and I should be able to question your beliefs.
Right. And I should probably receive a solid argument in return.
And when you are really, if you're true, like, if you believe in what you preach and you have the evidence, you should actually look forward to this conversation, because you will knock it out of the park, because you will have like opportunity to actually prove me wrong.
Yeah.
Right? End of story. If that happens, it's an easy conversation.
And have you felt that
never happens
through time with the people that you have maybe had podcasts with or have had interactions? You never got a chance to hear that argument?
No, because none of the people that that are very, very loud and very influential. And believe me, I have tried to talk to all of them.
You mentioned the name earlier.
And they have refused, or they pretend that they're not getting. They completely either say, well, yeah, we can do this I'm busy, let's do it in January. And then I contact in January. Yeah, I'm writing this, let's do it in April. I contact in April. I know that's not happening.
Right.
I know. Oh, let's do it in July. So guess what? When I contact them in July, ain't not gonna happen.
Yeah.
And there is the other ones that just simply ignore, and it's like, no, I'm not talking to. With one of the very strange reasons is like, I'm not gonna give a platform to something that I'm against. But it's like, what are we doing? Like, why can you not? Like, are you so insecure, or are you afraid that what you believe can be shaken, it can crumble, and you have no way of defending it? Because if I feel that somebody wants to learn more about what I do and challenges something, I can very methodically explain what I do and why, and I can attach different science and different papers to it if needed,
right,
to prove my point. And apparently you can do the same. And you feel so strongly that you're so superior in your evolution as a dog trainer, that you have the upper hand, and you have all the evidence in the world that it should be walk in the park for you to explain to me and convince me to where tomorrow I will change. Like, I literally will change. Why wouldn't I? If, like,
especially when you say that.
Right. Let's say
if it's
we're
a better
training,
way, I'll do it.
Right. Let's say we're training some exercise in Mondioring, and I'm convinced that I have a really good hold on that exercise. And you tell me, well, there is a better way. And then I will show me. And you show me, and I'm like, no, I see a hole here. What about that? And then you say, well, we can work with that, or we can whatever. And then we can decide. And all of a sudden, a third person is like, oh, I have way better option than both of you. Okay, come to the conversation. Let's train dog. And all of a sudden, I know that all of us, even if we don't adopt, even if it for some reason I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna accept what Nake is doing in the garden of object because it's not my way.
Right.
But I cannot say that that's not gonna work because I see it working.
Right.
I can never say that that's not gonna work.
Yeah.
Or between the three different approaches, we all can agree that, why are we wasting time and why are we confusing the dog when clearly this works
and benefits the dog
and
helps the dog to
all
improve.
around is the way.
Yeah.
We would adopt this,
but that
in that same second. From there on, that's what we're going to be doing.
Right, but
that's dog training.
But that would be a healthy conversation, right?
Right.
Why is it not happening? Why do you think the reason why people stay away from that doesn't happen?
Because I cannot have any other explanation besides that they are afraid that they don't have enough to actually convince that whatever they're recommending is better.
I've actually seen a recent, I'm gonna say it like a situation where one of the there's one person in UK who trains KNPV, and he's got a pretty serious dog, and it's been into a back and forth with with someone that trains force free, to the point where that person said, I am happy to come and just take your dog out from the crate and walk it. And this is a serious dog. This is, with all like bite work experience that I have, I will not try to take that dog out of his like place.
Right.
But my moment of like, I was amazed how easy it was for that person to go, absolutely, I'll come tomorrow. And he openly said, I am writing right now, as we speak, I'm writing the disclaimer for you to sign to come in. It never happened.
You know, like if we're talking some astrophysics or quantum mechanics or what actually happens in a black hole, yeah, all we can do is
have some
put
theory
some
about it,
amazing theories and try to defend them. In dog training, we can actually, there is empirical, like we can get dogs and play around, and clearly we will have outcomes.
Right.
It's very easy, you know.
Which is black and white.
Why do we don't
want
want to do that? Because you don't like it? If you don't like it, that's one thing, and nobody forcing you to do nothing that you don't like. Why would anybody force you? It's not like I'm trying to insist on you doing something that you feel you shouldn't. Why would you?
It's just a shame that
It's a bad situation. But as I said, I really think that at least here in the States we're doing a pretty good job. It's dangerous in terms of as much as there is good training and ethical and humane training, there is bad thing happening. Nobody can argue that.
But I think that happens all over the place, not necessarily just
Correct.
the USA.
Correct.
I think it happens all over the place, like absolutely all over.
And including the argument that I always have about electric color is like, just as I had it with Nick, you know, it's like, yeah, of course, when the police officers know that you're all against tools, he's not gonna tell you that that's what he does, especially when it's everybody's gonna point finger on them. If there was a better option and they say, you know what, there is a better way, we can do it this way, and it works. If not better, just as good. So why would you do that then? But why don't you come and teach? Like go to some IGP club, go to some Mondioring club, and make demonstrations. You're gonna be highly respected, and you're probably gonna get actually pretty good income if you can do that. But not if you're a con artist, but if you actually can show a different, better way.
Because then everyone will adopt it, right?
That's
the whole
point. Exactly. Every single country that the electric color has been banned, the electric color sales in this country has never went down, ever. Now, we can argue why, but the main reason is what I just said. It's like you're only saying, let's ban it, there is a better way, but you're failing to show the better way.
I guess that's probably a question and an answer that they don't even have an answer to.
But there is I don't know, like I think so much about this. I'm convinced that there are certain people that definitely understand, but it benefits them to be in that camp, if you want to call it that.
And when you say benefit, is it like from a business perspective?
Yeah, I mean you have, again, take typically everybody right now is like, well, how are you going to train my dog? Are you using shock collars? It's like, I don't need to use shock collar on your dog. If you don't want to, why would I? It's your dog. Why would you think I would just strap a shock collar on your dog and just go, j? It's like, no, I am a professional dog trainer, and I do what you need and what's the best for the dog, and I wouldn't ever do nothing sneaky behind you. And ultimately, if that's what you want to do, we can make a great plan and go that way.
Yeah.
And any way along the way you want to change it, we can talk and we can change it, or we don't. I wish that there is somehow to make a statistic in the States right now. The dog trainers that use aversive somewhere in their training, typically they're very busy. They are very busy. There is just dog training. There is need. There is a lot of dogs.
I'll tell you what, the same thing happens in the UK.
Yeah. And then
they are busy. Like and I'm talking busy, I mean like they've got a waiting list.
Right. And then you have people that would, because I mean, you cannot, I cannot argue. Of course it feels good when somebody says, well, what are you going to do? Take the blue or the red pill? Are you a good person or a bad person? Are you want to punish your dog, or do you want to reward your dog? These are, that's a scam. And of course you are a good person, and of course you don't want to punish your dog, and of course, but eventually some dogs, whatever you're doing, it's not working out. And if you say that, well, let's euthanize that dog, or let's just put him to some, forever shelter situation, and you say that you have tried everything, but you haven't said no, and you haven't just tapped them on the collar and said, dude, knock that shit off. Like, stop it.
Right.
You have not done that, but you've tried everything. You went to counseling, you went to the best of the best of that branch of dog training, and you use psychotropic medication and whatever you want to say. Don't tell me that you tried everything, because you did not. And
would
you know what is very interesting is like when you go to, because I follow them, it's interesting, and I don't follow them necessarily with bad intention. I follow dog training because I can learn from any place.
Right.
And when you get to say a PDT or any of the force-free organizations, and they would have their conferences, really every conference they would have a presentation. Somebody will talk about a burnout, like a trainer basically not being successful and getting discouraged and being burnout.
Right.
Because they don't bring success, because they're doing what they are supposed to do by the book,
and nothing
and
changes.
they're like, and it's not happening. And I'm trying, but it's not happening. Am I missing something? Am I a bad trainer? Like, you can see how that goes into a place to where you need a counselor. And it's like, well, what that I have never seen in there is this other organizations that have conferences that use aversive and use electric collars. There is never a topic such as trainers burnout. And if there will be, it will be because of a lot of work and not being able to say to a client, hey, I cannot take it because I'm just fully booked for the next half a year.
Right.
And on the force-free, it's a very common thing to where somebody starts, and it's like people are like, I can talk the talk, I can convince them, but sooner or later, these people need something tangible. They need some outcome. It's important to bring an outcome at some point. And when you cannot, now you start to question yourself. And the whole recipe of the force-free is that, well, you gotta be patient as long as it takes. And if it's not happening, it's because you're not doing it right.
So what are these like layers of excuses to keep it going? For me personally, it's mind blowing because just the fact that when you mention and it's proven that you are attracted to what you like and you stay away from what you don't like.
Right.
I don't know how that doesn't mean anything to people,
Right.
training or not. I don't know how that doesn't have any reference.
Even the whole fear-based thing, like, do you have the fear-based, fear-free? Like in the States now, it's like on top of force-free, there is a fear-free, which, like you go to the vet clinic and there is a fear-free vet clinic. And it's another big scam because
That sounds like
somebody,
marketing more than anything.
No, that's exactly what it is. It's like somebody created the fear-free idea, and if you're a veterinarian and you have your clinic and you want to be fear-free, guess what? You got to become a member and you got to pay your annual thing that
Membership,
you're
yeah.
part of the fear-free. And the dog comes to the clinic and you just open a bag of treats and you're just stuffing treats, but eventually you have your vet techs jump on the dog and clip their nails because that's what we're going to do. The consensus thing is another one. I mean, you cannot ask a dog for consensus. You cannot ask a 2-year-old for consensus.
I've actually had this argument.
Like
with,
this is the
a few people.
like, what are you talking about?
Right. I've actually had this. One of my arguments with one of these persons was like, I actually appreciated that they thought of what I said, and they were like, that actually made me think about it, if it was or not. That actually made me think that that was probably just a marketing thing. So from here and there, you get the odd person that will just take everything in and go, okay, I can actually understand. Looking at it from that point of view or from that angle, it actually makes sense. Let me just do a bit more research on it, or let me just let's try to find some answers in that regard. But yeah, this thing with consent is just, it's a bit strange. But I mean,
What do you think about Florida? How was it? It was the first time here.
Florida was absolutely amazing.
Yeah?
Like I love the weather. I love hot weather.
Right.
And then being able to train the dogs, being able to see the ocean, being
Go
able
to
to
the
enjoy
beach
the weather.
and-
It was absolutely amazing. I was like in good company all the time. And it was pleasant because we would train dogs and all of our minds were in there, and then we would take a
Right.
break. But then during that break, we would like talk about a bit about dogs,
Right.
and then we would switch to something else. So it was
And-
very, very interesting.
And the reason I'm bringing it, it's kind of, in a way, I want to deflect the conversation because it's not going to go anywhere. But at the same time, we had, like, you came and you had some ideas, and then I had some ideas, and then there were other people, and then eventually we're like, okay, we all are looking for the best outcome. And then we kind of, it's like, okay, well, that's the idea, that's the concept, how is that gonna work? And then we try it, and then we talk about it, and then we say, well, it's a bad idea. I can show you why. Or, oh, that actually makes sense, and actually, that's way bigger than even that specific situation. That's how
It's supposed
we
to
can have that conversation with anybody that's interested in progress in the dog training industry.
So remember, before I came here, I think a few days or a week before I traveled here, I texted you and I said, I would like to have these things at the field. So I already had like my ideas in my head. Remember, can I have this? Can I have that? Can I have this for this exercise, this for this exercise? And he said, yeah, absolutely, no problem. Everything is sorted. And then I came here, and then we actually discussed, and I think the beauty of it is that we didn't just discuss Kimba.
Right.
We discussed Chris's
Right.
Perry and
Right.
Javier's Jinx.
Right.
And then we discussed your other dogs.
Right.
And then each day brought something for the dogs.
And we played with some ideas.
And we played with some
Right.
ideas, but those wouldn't have been possible if that conversation wouldn't have had in the first place. So you had your thoughts and plans and ways how you see certain exercises.
Right.
And I have mine, and they were probably different. And then we just, like you explained, and then, okay, I absolutely get it now. And then I've tried it.
Right.
And then I can actually
And
see how
now-
this man has a point, right?
Exactly. Now, tomorrow you fly to California, we stay here, but all of our brains are ticking and thinking. And it's like, yeah.
Putting all
Right?
together.
It's the cool thing about it.
Yeah, we
that's
actually...
that's why we get together, so we can exchange and nobody puts nobody down. It's actually collectively trying to progress and get better.
And
you
I
know?
felt we did throughout these 5
Right.
days with like every single dog that we worked. And then when we discussed, I think it was at some point this afternoon in between dogs, or when we had a small break, like, and when I said it's fascinating how one discipline and the way you train there and the concepts that you use there, if you take what you need from that and apply it in that other discipline,
Right.
it complements it very, very
Right,
well.
right.
If we wouldn't have experienced it, it would have been just if we wouldn't have experienced it with the dogs, it would have been just well, in my line of work, I do this.
Yeah, that
And
would
then
be exactly
like,
how the...
Well, in my
Yeah.
line of work, I do this. And they'll be like, well, your line of work is shit.
Right.
Yeah, well, mine is better. So that would have been but
Right.
then we actually
Play with it.
physically did
Right.
stuff. Yeah, I remember
Because
correctly.
this is our, when you thinking of scientists and canine research and whatever, this is our lab outside right here.
Right.
This is
yeah.
where we take the dog and we try it. And then we evaluate. Okay, did we try it correctly? Did it work? Did it not work? Why did it work? Why did it not work? And when you have a study that has only 5 dogs or 15 dogs or 20 dogs, which is considered a very big case study, no, we do this for year after 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 year.
And funny enough that every year there's something else.
There is every day, right?
Right. Well, whoever's gonna listen to this is gonna think, oh, they got the dogs out and every repetition was great. Absolutely not. Everything had something to adapt.
Right.
Everything had something to change
And
a
we're
little bit.
all looking at each other. It's like, well, what you got? What's your idea? What's mine? We need to come up with the best. Why would we settle for something that's not good? Being as a precision, being as a motivation, being as inhumane, and so on. Right? That's where, for one reason or another, the force-free are really
limiting themselves?
They are. I don't know if they are afraid because they're gonna be challenged and they think that the other side gonna be extremely rude and disrespectful, or I don't know what it is. Or is it because they know that they cannot convince you? But for one reason or another, we can train 5 days and we can now go our ways, and we all have something that we got out of this experience, like good shit, you know?
Yeah.
That we can move on and actually make more and better because of that interaction. I don't get it.
Nothing from what happened. I mean, some things were planned, but the variables were so many, and the things that changed during even like last exercise. To give an example, last exercise with Kimba was let's do it for, I mentioned, let's do it to get her up on the left side, right? It's a technical term, right? In Mondioring, right?
Yes.
For people who won't understand. It's a technical, let's get the dog on the left side for whatever reason, right? And then the way she performed, which was not on the left side, was so good that we didn't even need to go there anymore.
Right.
And I think those are the things that you can't put in a book. Those are the things you can't probably put in a study, because
we cannot.
They just happened there. Okay, we had a concept in our heads. It was the accessories, right? We know what the purpose is. We know what the rules are. We know how we conduct the whole practicality of the exercise. So we are guided by something.
Right.
It's not just a random go bite him.
No.
Right? There are some indications and some rules that we need to follow in that situation. Right? But then the result was nowhere near what we aimed at the beginning. But what the dog did was so good that there was no point like pushing it from that point forward.
Backwards at that point, right?
If I would have tried to, I would have undone whatever she did like the previous 2 minutes ago.
Right.
And I don't think you can put that in any book. I don't think you can put that in any plan.
And this is what my point is like we have to start somehow to train together, like not staying, come, let's play. I bet you any force-free trainer will take something away, and vice versa. And it doesn't need to be even some mega star force-free trainer. You go to seminars, there is a random person that comes and all of a sudden they do something with their dog and you're like, do that again, just so I know it's not an accident. And now I'm watching and I'm trying to see how that works. And if I pick it up, great. And if I don't, I'm like, what are you doing? How did you make it?
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Because it's fucking good.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Right?
Yeah, I go to
and
seminars.
And this is what's about.
Yeah, I go to seminars to decoy, and then I talk with the handler. Okay, we're gonna do this for this, and this is the purpose of what I'm gonna do over there.
Right.
And then the dog comes and does something that like, have you done this before? Or no, never. But I've done this instead. I said, okay.
Right.
Then you figure it out somehow, or you try to find out how that behavior was.
And just as we go and teach,
achieved.
We learn just as much. And that's, again, like I don't want to go back to it again, but I cannot help myself. This is what, again, it's upsetting when somebody that clearly is a accomplished trainer, is a world champion in agility, and I'm asking a question, how and what if the dog does, what do you do? And you cannot give me anything to go with.
That's like you asking me
like,
now,
what?
How do you get the dog to cross the stick? And me going, well,
right.
See,
it just happens.
So when the dog is younger, you feed it right? Me saying something like that, which is strange. It's indeed strange,
right?
Especially if someone that has had actually like black on white results. If you ask me, so in the last 2 years from the UK, I managed to train with 2 dogs that have been at the podium in
which are actually big,
which is good, right? If you ask me how I've trained those dogs, I can tell you, top to bottom, how I started.
And you can tell me where the difficult moments were, when
how I bumped into stuff,
breathing through it, and so on.
I can tell you all of that. And my experience and my knowledge in there will be used for the next dog or for the next generation.
Right.
And then experiencing these 5 days here, I'm sorry to say, but I've actually stole some stuff that
you have to.
I mean, that's how how I started, right?
Yes.
As I mentioned at the beginning, I was just lingering around someone and watching him, how he moves, when he pulls the lead, why he pulls the lead, when he rewards, why he rewards, how he does it, what he does it with, how he talks with the dog.
Right.
all of those details like matter to me then.
Yes.
And they've been transitioned in the sport that I do.
This is the cool part. That's why I'm saying the collective evolution to where, yes, you think that you're still in it, but you're not, because I'm openly giving. But then I'll be curious when you come next year where you've taken it, because maybe I will be like, shit, he took it to a whole fucking different level that I didn't think.
It was possible, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's what's about. That's the cool thing. Why can we not have this? Why do we have to say, well, you're force-free and you suck, or you're using shock collar and you suck?
There's probably an aim which we're not aware of. Could be.
Yeah.
But at least we did it, so we're happy.
We had great time, man. So next is California.
Yeah.
How many days you're doing?
So I'm going to do 4.5 days, if I can put it that way. Yeah, 4.5 days.
But that's good. I mean, there is another time change, 3 hours, but
it is.
Yeah.
I've done it last year, and it was good.
Yeah.
If they call me back, it means it was good, right? Normally
Right.
you go to places,
Exactly
and
right.
if you're not doing the right
Yes.
thing, they will not call you back. I've been like in Germany, the same place for 3 years in a row.
And actually, that's the best way when, like, at least for me, when there was time in my life where I was just going places just because I haven't been, and it's very interesting, and you meet new people, but eventually I was like, man, I end up, you know that movie Groundhog Day? So there was this old kind of, well, it's quite old movie, but basically the day kept repeating. So he always ended up waking up and replayed the whole day over and over again.
I've seen something. I'm not
until
sure if it's
he
exactly
made
the same
it
thing.
right.
Right.
So that's kind of how it feels. And I'm sure people that do seminars can totally relate to this. When you go to a new place, you're always starting at a certain place, and you get to a certain place, and you do that over and over and over again. Unless you have a group that you go again and again, and you have something to build on to, and then then they get to experience the next level and the next progression versus just repeating the same and the same and the same.
And in that group, it can fit like a couple of new people. Yeah, the second time you go, and then the third time is those people and a couple of new other people.
Yes.
So I think that's how like progression is made. I've always liked to do that with my seminars and or workshop, whatever you want to call them. Every time I went there, and after I finished, I went to the handler and said, I said, how did you feel about it? What did you notice? What did you what did you like?
Feedback.
What did you don't like? Right? There's always
It's
that.
important.
And I do that with like judges when I compete. I know they signed the book, everything was okay.
Sure.
I said, but
Talk
just
to
like
me.
give me something, right?
Just talk to me.
even if you don't have anything, just like give me something.
Right.
Like I need to know.
Right.
I really need to know, because I need to next time in 3 months time I meet you. You're judging a competition and I'm there again. So I know now what's your personal preference. I know what you like or don't dislike. And you don't need to worry about me, because now I know. You just need to worry about putting the scores there. I think that's an important part as well. And that's always somehow for me has been a validation of, if I go to one place, new or not, if they call me back, I must have done something right.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
If they don't, okay, maybe that was a match. But if it happens in one place, maybe that's an accident. But it's not happening in one. It's happened like multiple places.
Right.
So I must be doing something. And I think that's the way to like go about it. Otherwise, it's like
that's
you can try
most
new places
logical
all the
thing to
time, but
do.
then you will run out of new places at some point.
And even if you don't, again, it becomes really you're like, I was stuck there for few years to where it's like, man, I really don't need to even focus. I can just talk to group of people the same conversation that I had the last weekend, because that's where we are.
Right.
And yeah. So after California, I mean, you kind of like to go. How does it work with getting off of work and
So
how is vacations? I mean, that's kind of conflict too, right?
It is conflict, but I've got like this ability to like, I've got a good number of days that I am allowed to take off. And as you can see, like when I travel, most of the work, this is like an exception, 5 days. And then another 4.5 in California. That's a long period of time. But normally it's a weekend. If I need to travel, sometimes I need to travel Friday night and then come back Sunday. So I only need 1 day off.
Yeah.
And then Monday I'm back.
Yeah.
Sometimes I need only 2 days off for a 4-day trip.
Yeah.
Depends on the situation. So, but I don't do as much as I want, but I know I'm not supposed. No. I know I have to like not do as much as I want as well. So I've got I've got family,
right?
I've got a child. I need to be involved in that. I can't just
for sure.
If it was up to like, if I wanted to like fulfill my passion completely, I'll be on the road all the time.
Gypsy style.
Yeah, but I've got other things going on, right? Which like they are important as well. And we actually talked about this the other day, how good it is to like at some point disconnect from it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Javier was mentioning this period of time, I take this time off.
Yes.
Because I can't function all the time if I'm there all the time. My brain needs to go somewhere else.
My best ideas always have come during vacation time.
Right.
Always. But it's hard to take vacation for me. But like I have to convince myself that I need to take breaks, because all of a sudden my brain somehow is free to actually get creative again.
Come up with something. Right. Yeah.
Right. So after California, what, Finland, you said?
Finland, yeah. And then back to the States in Montana.
Cool.
Montana. Then I should have a visit in Poland. And then if all goes okay, I will attempt to do the super selection again this year.
Nice.
That's my box
How is the super
to tick.
selection? How long does it last once you certify? Like, when did you get the last one? How long?
2021.
So what does it go for?
5 years if I'm correct. 4 years if I'm incorrect. I don't know if they changed it at the last meeting.
So, but it's not that every world championship needs a selection,
super selection happens every world championship.
But if you have passed and you're in the top, let's say top 3,
right,
2 years ago, and this year
at
there
this
is
moment,
a world
I'm
championship,
still within my
you're
license.
still
I still
okay
got
to
time.
go. Okay, that's what
I'm
I mean.
still okay to go, and the only reason why I'm doing it is, let's say I pass with an excellent score, right? Let's say I get 5th place. 5th place will give me another 4 or 5 years from this year forward, or I get 1st place, and that will get me to the next year world championship.
Okay, so it's kind of thinking ahead.
So
I
can do it on the year that my license expires, to extend it.
Yeah.
Or I can do it this year for a place at the World Championship.
Okay.
And if I don't get it, I can do it again next year.
Yes.
Yeah. So normally when you go for a super selection, you want to be selected for a World Championship. That's the goal, right? At least that's for me. I want to compete. I want to show that I'm good. Sometimes I want to show that I'm good than the other one.
Right.
Just because that will get me to a point where I'll be able to compete against the best dogs. That's what the World Championship is being organized for. So we can see the best dogs with the best decoys in the best environment, so we can select the best dogs if possible. That's the aim. And at my age, I think that's probably gonna be my last attempt. Maybe one more if possible. If I'm okay with it.
I mean, you will know.
Decoying it's no decoying is a young man's game at some point.
Exactly. Although Mondio, you can go a little bit, but still, yes.
Right. My friend who got injured and I replaced him in 2022, he was 43 years old.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So you can, but at some point, after years of getting hit and turned and twisted and...
Man, and the whole thing with the Mondio, like I don't think we probably need a whole other podcast. I don't know how much memory cards we have, but man, the rules of this sport, like I love it, but it's becoming like there's so many things I don't like, and who am I to say that I don't like them? I've played it way back in the early 90s, and now I'm starting again, but like one thing I will not do, I know, because I don't like mechanical training, and I don't like to cheat in the training.
Right.
You know where I'm going.
Yeah.
Defensive handler. I'm not gonna, I know, like I have this conflict with myself. Okay, I wanna go in a very high level, and do I give a cue to Kimba that nobody will know? Am I capable of this? Yes, I am.
Right.
I can tell her when to bite. Now, that on its own takes the whole interest of me making a sound training to teach her what it's about, the true nature of the exercise.
Mm-hmm.
But the defensive handler has become so impossible to the point that there is no question you can make every dog being lost in it unless you cheat.
Right.
Right? So why do we not go a little bit step back and say, you know what, let's focus on real training. Let's make it a little bit to where, okay, we can confuse the dog and see if the dog understands the exercise. But if we confuse the dog long enough, there is no dog that's gonna pick up. Some will pick up just because they end up being at the right moment,
at the right time,
place.
Right.
Everybody else has to be cued.
Right.
It takes away of the interesting part of training for it, to me.
Okay.
I mean, even the search. How more complicated we need to make it, and why, like, there is a place where the dog can search, and especially when we have time limit. And then you make it so confusing, and trust me, I understand the idea. I was way in the beginning when Mondioring was starting. I ended up actually being in Belgium, and I think it was in Tournai, and they were fighting French Belgians which exercises to accept to make the program. But then creating so much confusion that actually it's not about anymore, does the dog know where the guy is, but is it like talking about, let's say, the fences thing.
Right.
So you have the outside fence that borders the field, and then you're using the same fence inside, and now the dog should, or anything of that version. Like, I don't think it needs to go that way, because we know if a dog has a nice instinct to find, they will
do their best.
But if they're reluctant because of the complexity of how the field is set up, they know exactly what they need to do, but they're like, this is against some other rules that I've been taught.
Right.
And now, you know very well what happens when that exercise, when the dog doesn't find. Now we don't have, bunch of points just out the door.
One exercise can mean
for no
you're
reason.
World champion or not.
Right.
I think
then the accessories. We talked about the accessories. It's like, the original idea from what I used to believe at the time was, impress the dog, and let's see how slow it will be to engage.
Right.
Now we have these beautiful accessories to where the dog is coming, and it's really, there is nowhere like, how do I find my way in there to bite you? It's not that I'm afraid. It's not that I'm hesitant. I'm trying, but I am not able, simply because it's
the way they're being
like
constructed,
why, right? Yeah.
Right.
What do you think of this? Where it's going? This whole, like, the rules are becoming. I will tell you my opinion. It's like I feel that it's almost like as a judge, you come to the field and you're like, okay, I'm gonna make a very cool setup to where many dogs gonna fail, and that's gonna show that I'm better judge and more creative than this other judge. And now it becomes competition between the judges who can confuse the dogs more, which at some point we need to say, just stop. Let's calm down and let's allow the dogs to actually compete against each other.
So I don't think you're the only one who has this idea or feeling about this whole thing. Right. So Mondioring rules have been the same until the last meeting, where certain things have changed, not anything major. There's no exercise that has completely disappeared or completely changed, right? But there's been like small details that have been changed in there. Now, as a handler, I think you train where your heart is. And what I mean by that is what you kind of gave an example earlier. Do I train the concept?
Right.
And do I allow the dog to understand what this actually is? Or do I train to do everything I can in my power, regardless of what that everything means, to become the best of the best?
To make the point.
Points, right? Either it's defense, either it's accessories, either it's search. There's always, I haven't been to a competition or a world championship or a national competition where every single member of the audience or every competitor outside that category or even in that category sat on the side and went, yes, that was good. That was proper Mondioring. There's always, I think that was too much. I think that was way too complicated for the dog to search. Right. There's always that person that goes, that dog has trained on this field and then he knows.
Right.
Yeah. So there's always these variables that will count. The Mondioring rules are there, and it does give you they haven't changed, but it gives the ability to be flexible, and it gives the ability to have imagination in certain aspects, right? Now, as an organizer, you need to set up the theme, right? I've been last year, it was carnival. So it was all like games and bumps and fluffy toys, huge fluffy toys. Now we got there, and the judge saw all of them on the field and said, okay, we're going to do this with the defense, this with the escort, this with the retrieve, this with the absence. Were they suitable for the theme? Yes. Was every dog happy about it? No.
Right.
Were some of the dogs able to perform? Yes. Have the handlers completely respected the rules? Some of them, yes. Some of them, no.
Right.
So I think regardless of how the rules are, and I think regardless of which way you want to go, up and down, flexible or not, with more imagination or not, regardless of how everything is going to go up and down, there's always going to be something that's going to trigger someone else to think, I don't think that's fair. That on the same spot, someone else going, it was fine for me. I don't know what I think is fair, which is okay until it gets to like ridiculous. I think that's
right. The ridiculous part is the one I'm talking. Yeah.
From my point of view, when I go there and decoy, I'll tell you what a decoy can have an influence on when they compete, when they decoy a competition. They can have an influence upon how the scenario of the defense would work, right? So there will be the judge and the decoys discussing. We've got these items. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's do. Sometimes, not sometimes the judges can be
very strongly
can be opinionated.
Yeah.
I want to use this.
Yeah.
I want to use that. I want to have the dogs here. I want them to experience this sound, and I want them to experience this item, or that can happen as well. And I've got absolutely like, I can't say, you know what, I'm gonna walk out of the field because I can't do it. That can't really happen, right?
Yeah.
Because he has my book, and then he's gonna go.
Of course.
And then there's no more. So I need to be within their requests. Yeah, I would say 98%, 99% of the time, there's discussions and feedbacks between, we can do the defense here, and then, okay, and there's like, this is category 2. Well, let's do it for category 2. Let's not amplify in this area.
Right.
I would say there's what I think it's important is that for handlers and competitors and decoys to understand is that there's always a difference between club trial,
Sure,
nationals, and world championship.
sure.
There's
There
always
should be, of course.
There's
of
always
course.
a difference, right? And then if we take a dog that has been competing in the same kind of area or the same let's say there's always like the same type of decoy or one of them in a year of competitions, and then he goes to the world championship and he bumps into like decoys that go, you are not gonna bite me today, or if you do, you're gonna have a hard time doing so,
Right.
or even if you get to bite me, I'm gonna work you so you next time when you try to, you're gonna have second thoughts. That's an unrealistic situation, right? You need to train like we did with like you said.
No,
show
I know
her
what you
like
mean. Yeah.
show her that things are gonna get nasty
Right.
if she doesn't pay attention, right?
Right.
And then she clocked on it and she was like, yep,
Right.
that's right. And then when she bumps into that in a real, like, we're competing for points now, she's going to go, I'm ready.
Yeah, I know that. No. Man, it's a tough one. Very tough
It
one.
is tough because I think the complicated bit is that the rules are the same, but then imagination can lead to anything.
You have in IGP, you have in French ring, very, very consistent. There is no variables pretty much. And you still can say, you can still, as a judge, say which dog was the best one and which was second and which was third. You don't need to make it so complicated that a really good dog fails an exercise and a very poorly trained dog fails the same exercise. And because it's so complicated, and then there is one or two that make it by pure chance, and then there is 3 that make it because they cure or cheat in some way. And then we end up not evaluating dog and training abilities. We ended up kind of...
Well, my argument for that is that cueing or doing things that may go unnoticed is not going to work all the time. And I've experienced it. I have had in competitions. And
I'm sure.
And it's my duty to tell and I have done it. Like I have said to the judge, okay, the dog has bit, but I've heard it. Like,
right.
It's not
right.
I mean, you probably heard it, even though you were like
Yes.
far away. You probably heard it as well. It's my responsibility to say so. While teaching the concept is something different. If it hasn't worked, when you teach the concept, is what hasn't worked, and then you take that and you fix it, right?
Right.
But then if it's like, I don't know, are you lying to yourself? Maybe. But then there's always, when you said that the dog gets to be on podium or on high ranked because by chance, there's always the next competition. Or there's always the next world championship.
Sure.
Go back and prove it. And
Sure.
normally, a dog that has been there by chance or has been there by things that are not indicated by the rules to be, there's a high probability that that performance is not going to happen again.
Yeah, but just the fact that is a possibility one time, it's still not cool.
Yeah, being cool, absolutely not.
Right. Again, like my thing is that as a judge, Mondioring gives you so much opportunities to put the dogs in certain
Positions or
categories
situations,
and placements to where you don't need to make it extremely confusing to where the dogs and the handlers are forced to train incorrectly. That's kind of my whole point. I don't know. And as I said, like I know, like it just so I'm gonna do the best I can to teach my dog to do defense without cueing.
Right.
It's just like it takes away
The essence.
the interest of me training the dog if I just say get it.
Right. Right.
Maybe as I keep going, who knows? I might change my mind, but
I mean, has it happened in the past? Yes. Will it continue to happen? Probably.
right.
Are there people out there who train it fairly and precise? Yes. So it's again a lot of variables.
But
that
if we bring it down, if we become a little more reasonable of what we can do and how complicated we get, because again, like I don't need to be a Mondioring judge. Like I can set up a field to where if you are not cheating, there is no way.
Right.
This is not hard. Like really, that's not hard to confuse a dog.
Right.
Right? And so, but it's not about, like, yes, there is some confusion, and yes, there is something, okay, have you trained the dog? Does the dog understand overall the concept? But when it becomes so complicated, it's, I mean, you have, what is it, like 5 or 6 bite exercises, you have bunch obedience exercises, you have plenty of time, like, to make a much simpler program and say, yes, you're here and you're here, and put all the dogs in place versus have bunch of dogs failing and bunch of dogs succeeding because of the complications that got too creative, some judge, you know.
Right.
I don't know. Cheers, man.
Cheers.
I think this was awesome conversation. I think
Thank you
it's
very
good
much.
time to stop, and hopefully
Thank you very much for having
we do
me.
Florida again.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Until next time.
It was super cool.